This is Jennifer Hale, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. And, I should go.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode, wait for it, 450 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. And C.S. Lewis once said, "You can never get a cup of tea large enough or a book long enough to suit me." Welcome everyone to this week's episode. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like O'Dover with the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello. And
yes, you heard that right. 450.
Hey,
That is
we're halfway to the famous race in Florida that just took place or going on right now that got postponed yesterday because of the rain.
Yeah.
The Daytona 500.
Yeah.
Sorry, had to get a sports ball reference in there somewhere.
I've been following, just some of my sports Twitter people, and there's one who's like following the Daytona, and they're like, "Not again!" I'm like,
well, hey, at least they postponed it early enough yesterday morning. I'm just like, that's smart. Instead of sitting there waiting for 6 hours and deciding, hey, we're going to do this tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think the people who would have shown up for it would have been very happy about that. So
yeah,
that's what you get when you have a sport that races. It goes outdoors, but you don't use all-weather tires.
Oh, you can use all-weather tires,
or have rain tires. So
yeah,
it's, you know what,
IndyCar, they've got rain tires, so the Indianapolis 500 can happen.
Yep.
If it's raining. So
yeah, but also, like, I don't know. I don't know much about racing. I know enough, but it's like, okay, if you are, you're competing to be the best, and yeah, you could do it in the weather, but it kind of affects the way that you do what you're supposed to do. So it's like, yeah, you want everybody to have that to.
Yeah,
it's just the weird irony that it's that NASCAR originally was based on racing, like the car
Moonshine.
that you could just go get off, like just they're stock cars, so they started out racing the same cars that the average person could go to a dealer and buy, like the same Pontiac.
They're not,
but they're not met for the same conditions as a car you could go buy at a dealership. So
because the dealership cars, they like throw on all the bells and whistles to get you to buy them, but stock car, it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I don't know, but let's everyone be safe, and we want everyone to want people to enjoy and have a good, clean competition.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Well, let's do the news. So, award season chugging
BAFTAs.
along.
Glorious
so
BAFTAs.
The BAFTAs were yesterday, hosted by David Tennant and
that opening
Mark
was
Ruffalo.
Yes. And I'm wondering if Dame Judi Dench wasn't the one who babysat for Mark Ruffalo before with the issue with the kitchen.
Yeah, maybe. All I know is part of me just like, I want to like join in the fun, because it just the but at the same time it's like I just feel like I would have like moments of levity and laugh my took us off, and then eventually it would probably reach a point where I'm like, Anna, Georgia, pour me a glass.
Uh-huh. I can't with these two.
I'm convinced that, I know here in the United States they have them. I don't know about across the pond, but if they have the equivalent of like wine subscription boxes, that both the Sheen and Tenet households are regular subscribers. So
Oh my.
yeah.
Kind of have to be at that point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If I want to start expanding my horizons when it comes to wine, I'll shoot off a tweet to both Georgia and Anna and be like, "What are your suggestions?"
Please and thank you.
I too have a husband that sometimes is a man child. So anyway, BAFTAs. I don't think anything really like surprising happened. I think so. Oppenheimer won Best Film. Emma Stone was Best Actress for Poor Things. Cillian Murphy won Lead Actor. Nolan won Director. Poor Things won Makeup and Hair. Poor Things won Costume. Poor Things is slowly building steam, so we potentially be looking at an upset, but we do have one more award ceremony to go.
No, did RDJ win a BAFTA at all?
He did. So yep, he did. So
and then Michael J. Fox made an amazing appearance.
Yeah, so it was pretty much Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and The Holdovers, with a little bit of Zone of Interest, walking away with most of the awards. Boy and the Heron won animated film, so I think it's going to be a toss-up between Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and The Boy and the Heron. Which, again, The Boy and the Heron seems to be picking up steam, so we shall see.
No, is that a Studio Ghibli?
Yes.
The Boy and the Heron, yes.
That's
our newest.
Okay. Yep.
Because there's Studio Ghibli, and they've had other directors and filmmakers do stuff, which, good talented people, but, then you have Miyazaki, and he's just in it.
Yeah.
I'm biased, but he's in a class of his own, so.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, I really, really think not to tip my hand, but I really think Boy and the Heron is going to get the animated Oscar, which I'm happy about, but then I'm also a little sad because any other year, Spider-Verse probably would have got it. But then again, who knows? Who knows indeed?
That is true.
That's why they have. I was going to say that's why they have the award ceremonies.
Yes. Yes, but we do have one more award ceremony with the SAG Awards, which are this coming Saturday, as we're recording this, 24th. So, and then we have actually quite the gap between the SAG Awards and the Oscars. Last year it was like breakneck, but
yeah, it really
weren't they like a week apart?
Yeah,
I know.
It was quick.
But when I found out when the Oscars actually were, I'm like, wait, that's kind of late. But
yeah,
oh well, just how it goes.
Yep. So there is that. We're keeping an eye on those awards. And then speaking of Doctor Who, we still don't have a date, but at least now we have a month.
Yeah.
Disney Plus has let us know that Doctor Who is going to be returning this May. So, which I get technically is still spring. So
Depending on where in May.
Yeah.
If it's there.
I mean, as far as the calendar is concerned, summer does not officially begin until June. So.
I mean, if it is, this is how I look at it. If it is before my birthday, it's still spring. If it's after my birthday, it's pretty much summer.
Yeah.
Which my birthday's the 17th, so kind of like almost right smack dab in the middle. So that's always been my way of telling when summer starts. Because after my birthday, I'm just like, especially when I was in school, I'm like, and I'm checked out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. We don't know that yet. We just know it's gonna be May. In the words of Justin Timberlake. So, I guess you could circle May on your calendar.
Yeah, just do that. You'll be
circle the whole month and then circle slower.
Then you're covered.
They start dropping hints.
Yeah.
Then you just kind of start narrowing it down, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. But if you need to keep yourself busy until then, our friends over at Pencil Tip Publishing have announced that they are going to be re-releasing all 3 volumes of the Temporal Logbook series.
Ooh, nice. And we reviewed book number 3, if memory serves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these are all fan-written stories. Sean.
Yes.
Our good friend Sean may appear.
Mm-hmm.
In the byline. So, and they have said that Logbook 3, Change Lives, will continue to, proceeds from that they're going to continue to donate to a charity in the UK.
Oh, so, good. Cool. Awesome.
And then volumes 1 and 2, they will donate $5 to another charity. So
awesome.
Good cause.
Yeah. So these editions are not any different than previous editions, other than they did do some editing, caught typos, grammatical errors, that sort of thing. But they pretty much should be exactly the same.
Okay. So. Well, that's good to know.
Yep. And then Marvel gave us a nice Valentine's Day present with a date and casting announcement for the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
So our Fantastic Four will be hitting theaters July of next year. And we have Pedro Pascal, who I know, other than John Krasinski, he was the other fan favorite to play Mr. Fantastic. Vanessa Kirby, who we all know from The Crown, will be playing Sue Storm. Eben Moss Bacharach, hope I'm saying that right. He will be playing the Thing, Ben. And then Joseph Quinn of Stranger Things is going to be playing Johnny Storm.
That was exciting.
Nice.
I knew the Pedro Pascal rumor, I guess, was kind of floating around quite a bit, and you know there was some discussion of that going back and forth. But then I was very happy to see to see Joseph Quinn, because Eddie Munson is lovely, and the actor is a lovely person too, and so I hope. Yes. I hope this one goes well. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, there was a time when we were like the first Fantastic Four movie they did way back when Chris Evans was the Human Torch.
Yeah.
That one was a fun one, but I don't know like how it was kind of mixed. And then I really haven't had a good solid outing with the Fantastic Four movies.
I know that the one with Michael B. Jordan, they tried to make it a bit more serious. But it's like
went over like a wet fart in church. So.
Yeah. I mean, if I had my choice between that one and Chris Evans Fantastic Four, I'm going Chris Evans Fantastic Four. Those two versus
they were still, even then, the Fantastic Four, those movies were sort of getting the treatment of the kind of more comic booky,
right,
very colorful, silly treatments.
Yeah,
like,
and this is the other thing is the Michael B. Jordan one. That one, it was clearly just Fox trying to keep the rights from reverting back to it. It's a lot like what Sony has been doing with Spider-Man adjacent characters.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I have heard that is a positive thing is the little announcement that they had. It was like a Valentine's Day card, and it was all bright and colorful and kind of that futuristic retro sort of look.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are big comic book fans, who are big into Fantastic Four, back when they were the it thing, not confused with the thing. And they were like, yeah, this actually looks good because they're going to be in the 60s. It seems like, if that's what they're going to do, that's the proper setting for them. And it's going to make more sense than trying to make them modern, quote unquote, modern day. So it's like, if they go that route, it's I hope that's what they do, because I would like the Fantastic Four to be successful, because they're sort of, what do they call them? The first family of
they're Marvel's first family. I mean, when Stan Lee had reached his point where he was just wanting to give up the comic book business, and he's like, I'm just gonna hang it up and go off and do whatever. And his wife was all like, well, if you're gonna quit, you might as well, as a last hurrah, do whatever the hell you want. And that's what he decided to do. Was he had this idea for this family, the Fantastic Four, so that's what he wrote, and it got released, and it ended up being very successful and kept Stan Lee in the comic book business. So
it's funny when you think about it, because he's trying to do what the industry, quote unquote, wants him to do, and it's just not working. Then he finally does whatever, and that's what. So there is something to be said for doing your passion project, even though all logic tells you not to, and it ends up being a hit anyway. So you know what? If you've got that passion project in you, and you really just want to do it, and you're not quite sure, just do it and see what happens. I mean, it may work, it may not, but I kind of take heart from that. But this is the other thing: is Fantastic Four, Marvel's big sellers back in the day were Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and X-Men. And not coincidentally, those are the franchises that they sold the movie rights to before MCU Marvel Studios became a huge thing. Because Iron Man, etc., those were like their C, D, E tier.
Yeah, those are second, third string.
That's just like, oh crap, what do we have left? So for Fantastic Four to finally, hopefully, be back in good hands, although it seems like the Feige and company may be taking a stock, a deep breath, and taking stock of what they have and what they ought to be doing, and maybe cooling their jets on a few of their output. I really hope Fantastic Four does well. I really do. If not necessarily for myself, if for the people like my husband, who were big Marvel Comics fans back in the day, and I think they deserve to see something, a faithful adaptation. Not that was that 2005. I don't even remember when the Chris Evans one came out. Not that one wasn't fun.
It's early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s, and the Silver Surfer one was, but it was kind of, it wasn't bad. It was more mediocre, I guess, even by those standards. So I would like to see it well done. So the teaser, there is hope there, but I do want to see. I mean, obviously it doesn't come out till next year, but it seems like a step in the right direction. So I will give them that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been hearing from other comic book people who've been like, "Oh, it looks good. This looks like it. There's promise here."
Yeah. Well, as I've said, when it comes to the MCU, with certain characters, it seems like third time's a charm.
I hope so.
We went through 2 Bruce Banners before getting Ruffalo. You know, we're technically on our 3rd Spider-Man with Tom Holland, so why not a 3rd go round with the Fantastic Four? So
let's hope. I mean, for a while, Fantastic Four fans were like, "Well, the best Fantastic Four movie we're ever gonna get is The Incredibles," and I'm like, I can't argue with that, but we'll see how this one goes.
Yeah. All I'm saying, in my personal opinion, is let's get kind of like with Spider-Man. We don't need to rehash the same stuff.
No.
Again. Let's have whoever the villain is be someone other than Dr. Doom, please. We do not need another Doom. Save him for down the road, or something like what they did with, Spider-Man No Way Home, where they brought in, the Green Goblin from another universe.
Well, and this is another thing. If they want to, I'm kind of talking out of my butt here, so forgive me for my ignorance of the lore. But I'm like, well, what if you'd save Doctor Doom for kind of not like a Thanos-ish sort of thing? Like he's waiting in the wings for the big, I don't know, the big show.
I mean, he's a
exactly
good bad guy, but it's like we've been there, done that, and especially since after we've had Thanos, you really can't go bigger than that unless we go to like Galactus or somebody like that. So,
but I mean,
it's like
him like you did Thanos. I'm not saying make him the next Thanos.
Yes.
So, build him up a little more.
Yeah. I mean, Kang was supposed to, obviously Kang was supposed to be our next big one.
Well,
that's it got its own thing. So
back to the drawing board for a little bit and then come back.
Yeah. So it's just like, we could either do a smaller villain for the Fantastic Four, but just not Dr. Doom, please.
But I would have to do some research. Like, what are some other Fantastic Four villains? And any of our listeners who are familiar with these characters in the comics lore and whatever, drop us a line and tell us like who you would like to see as a villain. I mean, I know Silver Surfer's in there, but he's more of an antagonist, less an actual villain.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit Martian Manhunter in that regard. So I don't know. I would like to hear people's thoughts on what they could do with this. Just like what are you hoping for, or what do you think they could do?
Yeah. Well, and again, while we're waiting for that next year, thankfully, we're getting finally. Seems like forever since they announced this. The X-Men 97, the continuation of the cartoon, arrives March 20th on Disney Plus. We got a nice trailer with the theme music. They've done a really good job of capturing the animation style. So I'm excited.
So, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, it's like it looks good. It sounds good.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
It looks like a duck. It quacks like a duck.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I've been hearing.
Is it a duck?
Who grew up with the show, and I'm gonna be honest. I didn't grow up with the show because it was on a channel that you had to like Jupiter had to be just properly aligned with the asteroids for me to get that channel or something. Because it only came in clear once in a blue moon, so I really didn't ever watch X-Men animated series, although I do understand it is held in high regard by a lot of people. X-Men Evolution was the one I really got into because by then we had cable and we could get everything. And I really like that one. But I've been kind of trying to watch the X-Men animated series here and there when I have time. And I really dig Rogue. Rogue is really cool character, very different from the one that we got in the movies, and now I understand why people were not terribly happy with her. And Gambit, oh gosh,
yes,
I really like him. He's lovely, and I'm really sad that he didn't work out in the movies.
Just that drawl of his from being in Louisiana. Just something about it.
Yeah.
Like, I like you.
You're awesome. You're fantastic. So I hope this is good. I have heard everything from holy crap, this is amazing, it's gonna be awesome, to please don't suck.
Yeah.
Don't mess up my childhood.
Yeah.
So we will see. Although I have from the showrunner, I've heard good things about him. He's made good comments about the way that he wants to run the show, obviously, and like, who he has in there. So we'll see. So I hope it goes well.
Yep.
Check it out when it comes around.
About a month. So, yay. There is that for the news. We do have some feedback from Shalane. She says, it's about time we get to this season of Marvel What If. I was patient since the holiday break ended. So appreciate your patience, Shalane.
Yeah.
Best.
Yeah. Let's first talk about the trailers that dropped during the Super Bowl. The rumors are true that the trailer for the upcoming Wicked movie. I got chills during the trailer. It looks amazing, and I'm excited. This girl I told you about from the Frozen episode who was obsessed with Frozen and Wicked also wouldn't be my friend in college. Is probably upset at the casting of Glinda and Elphaba because I think she hates Ariana Grande. But a better friend loves Ariana Grande, and he's excited for this movie because he's a musical nerd. So he's the winner of best people who became my friends in college. And that's what you get, you Frozen and Wicked obsessed girl, for not being my friend in college and won't let me into your Disney club. That's good, Shalane. Don't. You don't want to be friends with haters.
No, you don't. No, you do not.
I'm excited for both Moana and Wicked. Me and my other friends might plan to go see them together. The Rock's coming back from Maui, and the same with Aoi for Moana. I didn't know Disney was going to do animation films this year after some of their originals. The story hit and miss in movie theaters, but so good. I thought they needed a break this year, but I was surprised, stayed for joy, that they announced a sequel for Moana because she's my third favorite Disney princess. I'm excited for the Taylor Swift concert coming to Disney Plus because I missed her concert. I have my ups and downs with Taylor Swift, but after her awesome concert, I've decided to give her another chance. Plus, I did enjoy the Percy Jackson TV series, and it was great. I've heard good things about the Percy Jackson TV series.
The fans are happy with this iteration, as I understand.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of sequels, it should have ended with their third one. I thought Kung Fu Panda 3 had a perfect ending. Then they decided to come back with a fourth, and Kung Fu Panda is done by DreamWorks. Yeah. I don't know why we need another. I haven't seen beyond the first one, so.
The first one is really good. I really like that first one. I haven't seen anything else.
Yeah.
Because I just haven't. And it's money, dear boy.
Yeah. Now let's go to Marvel What If. I love the Christmas episode where they mentioned A Christmas Story. The actor who played Ralphie was in Iron Man and Spider-Man Far From Home. He was also in the movie that Jon Favreau directed. It was a Christmas movie. Sorry, Rachel, I forgot you hate A Christmas Story. That's okay. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean it can't be mentioned. It's not like Voldemort where you have to be like, he who must not be named.
Heck, I still say I enjoyed Lawrence of Arabia, and I know that Rachel hates that movie.
Glad we finally got the Gamora and Tony Stark story. I did like Shakespeare starring the Avengers episode. I want to cosplay a Scarlet Witch Shakespeare outfit. Yeah. Shakespeare era. Scarlet Witch. Yeah, you could. We're probably likely to see some people cosplay from 1600 Avengers. So that's Shalane's feedback. So thank you for your feedback as always, Shalane.
Thank you.
So moving on to this week's main topic, we figured for 450 episodes that we would go back to our roots in a way, because Holly and I kind of had this idea when we were talking about The Crown. So we're going to talk about books, but specifically we're going to offer up some recommendations based on stuff that we have consumed, air quotes, recently. So
I may have gone overboard, but I've actually been reading a lot of fun stuff.
Chrissy is literally surrounded by books on a daily basis. So,
Yeah.
And you're kind of paid to read for at least part of your job. So
Yes, I don't get to read on the clock, but I do need to know.
Well, you could do story time. That's kind of reading on the clock.
Yeah.
That is my one and only, because I can be on the desk. I'm like, okay, I'm planning my story time for next week. What books? What's our theme? What books do I have available? Which ones do I want to do? Or maybe here's something new that I haven't done before, so I'll read it. So yes, that's about the only on the clock reading I can actually do. Is like, I'm getting ready for story time. We read some picture books. And to be fair, and I did talk the girl's ear off about one picture book that I really, really like, but that's also because I'm on the picture book committee for the Beehive Book Awards, which is Utah's award for kids, kids books, kids and teen books. And so I'm on the committee that chooses the nominees for next year, which starts up in September. So anyway, I was gushing about one of those that was nominated. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, considering your list is longest, Chrissy, we should probably start with maybe a couple of yours, and then we can bounce around. So.
Well, I mean, I kind of split them up sort of into categories. I mean, I read a lot of. Oh, what did I just do? I was on the thing and my iPad just went funny. I read, and I say I read. I do a lot of audiobooks because, like I said, I'm surrounded by books, and but I don't actually get to read while I'm on the job, and plus I have 2 little kids, and I have a fairly hefty commute to my job, so audiobooks are my best friends. And again, here's a plug for your local library. If your library has access to Libby or Hoopla, also can, there's different services that Hoopla does. It just depends on what your library subscribes to. I know my library doesn't do audiobooks because it was costing us way too much money, because people, they charge per download, and it was very popular. And I'm like, but if we have a service, don't we want people to use it? But we don't want them to use it too much because it costs us more money. It was a mess. So anyway, but if you are one of the lucky ones that has Hoopla and Libby access to audiobooks, good on you. But one audiobook I recently listened to, I guess I'll start with my nonfiction since it's up here at the top, is Mel Brooks's memoir, autobiography, called All About Me. And I found it on Libby, and it had a very short hold list, so I waited for it, and I listened to it, and Mel Brooks reads, or is the narrator, and I mean, I haven't gone out of my way to find the print version, but I get the feeling that I got more out of it by listening to him to read the audiobook than I would have if I just read it, because there's there are certain. I mean, I've read like the memoirs of celebrities, famous people, especially comedians, and I go in like, oh, this is going to be so fun and this is going to be hilarious, and like just reading it doesn't quite do it, but listening to him tell the stories, it's like, yeah, this feels like you're sitting with him and he's telling you all of these fantastic his life stories, how he got into show business, how he got his start, and all the different and the chapters are sort of divided up into like once he gets past like his childhood and when he was serving in the war and some of that early stuff, then it's divided by like the shows he did, then the movies. So each movie has its own chapter that he talks about when he's producing movies through Brooks Films. So those are like some movies that from other people or movies that weren't necessarily comedies and those kinds of things. So, and then every chapter that they would talk about, I was like, I want to go back and rewatch that movie. I need to go watch Blazing Saddles again or Spaceballs, or I actually did find History of the World Part 1 free on YouTube with ads, but hey, it's free. And that one was such a hoot. I don't know how I never watched that one, but oh my gosh, I died over the Spanish Inquisition music.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's Mel Brooks, obviously, but holy cow. Just the man is a treasure. And I knew he had been married to Anne Bancroft. But what I adored about that is like he talks about her. It is so sweet and so cute and just so tender, even though she passed away in 2005, and he's reading this because he wrote this book when the pandemic was going on and there wasn't anything else for anybody to do, so he wrote a book, and so he's well into his 90s at this point, and she's been gone for so long, and he's like. He even mentions like people ask why I never got remarried. And he's like, well, when you've been married to Anne Bancroft, like where do you go from there? And it's just like he talks about their relationship. It is beautiful. It is so good. But then he talks about just all the craziness of the movies and how he gets his ideas. And it was just he talked about when they made High Anxiety and it was just the high Alfred Hitchcock was like he asked permission of the man himself to parody Alfred Hitchcock, and Hitchcock was like, "Oh yes, this would be this is a great honor to be parodied by Mel Brooks."
It's like having Mel Brooks ask if he can lampoon something of yours is the equivalent of Weird Al asking permission to do a parody, and most people are like, "Oh my God, it's an honor, please."
Yes. And he was just nothing but complimentary about it. So we talked about that, and like they were good friends, and it's a great. And then he talks about the process of making the producers into a musical. But I will say, I mean, and I laughed throughout the audiobook. I'm not saying I did not, but I think my biggest laugh through this was when he's telling a story about when he was a kid, and his his dad died when he was very, very young, so he never really knew his father. So his mom was raising her boys. It was a single mom. So he's home one day and with at least one of his brothers, and his mom is out, doing something, and he really has to go to the bathroom, but there's only one bathroom in the house, and his older brother is there, and he's not, he is not vacating the premises because he's in the middle of something. So young Melvin, he's like, this new apartment where they live has a window, but he's up on a higher floor, and so he thinks, oh, well, this will work. So he starts peeing out the window, but he forgets that the window faces the street. This isn't the window in their old place that faced the back in like the back alley. And he's like singing Like, oh, what a beautiful. He's singing. I don't think it's "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning," but it's a song on that thing. And then here comes his mom with all of his friends, and one of them says, "Kitty, I think that's your window." And then she runs in, and they realize what's going on, and she like beats the crap out of him for doing that. And he's like, and I just died laughing. Because I don't know if it's just the situation or the way he told the story or anything like that. But I'm driving, and I was actually on my way to pick up my kids, and I'm like just tears running down my face while he is telling this story. And I can tell while he's telling the story, wherever he is, whenever he was recording it, he's like trying not to die of laughter at the same time. Just like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, yeah, there you go. So that was the story I laughed the hardest at. Not that I didn't laugh at any other points in the book, because there are some really funny moments, but I guess it's just because I'm a mom and I got kids, and anytime you have kids,
and one of them's a boy,
and you're like, yeah,
that's just a boy thing, and unfortunately, they do not grow out of that.
No, they do not. No, I know.
Just because they have the ability to go to the bathroom. Pretty much everywhere, they think it's their right to just go to the bathroom anywhere.
Yeah, it does. So anyway, so that one cracked me up, and but anyway, but no, the whole book is great. If you can get the audiobook, it's absolutely worth it, and it will definitely make you want to go on a Mel Brooks movie binge.
I have that on my to be read list on some app, and I think you may convince me to move it to the top. So
although and there were other moments where I was like when I'm at work and I'm doing something that I'm like, okay, I can listen to an audiobook while I do this task, and then I just have to stop and just start giggling, and and sometimes people would be like, what are you laughing about? I'm like, I'm listening to Mel Brooks' autobiography, and they're like, oh, okay, carry on then. Okay, so that's my audiobook nonfiction, and the other nonfiction I put on here is actually actually read the physical book, so yay me, it wasn't just an ebook. So I kind of have this weird, well, I don't want to say it's weird, a weird fascination, but I have an interest in ships and maritime history, and I watch a lot of YouTube channels about different ships and shipping and disasters, because that's what everybody talks about, sadly. But so this one book that I found, it's actually a newer book. I was putting it away on our new arrivals display, and it caught my eye because I'd never heard of this one before. It is called Torpedoed: The True Story of the World War II Sinking of the Children's Ship. So it's by Deborah Heiligman, I believe. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it properly. But it is the story of so hold on. I've got to get the ship's name right because I have it on here. Okay, so it is this SS City of Benares. And this is a ship that was evacuating kids out of England during World War II, during the Blitz. And this ship was torpedoed by a German U-boat who didn't realize, because it goes into it in the book, like why they would have thought it wasn't a civilian ship, or it was a legitimate wartime target. Mm-hmm. But this ship primarily was getting kids out of England, out of London, and some went to the countryside, but a lot of these kids were going to the US or to Canada. And so it goes through and then there were kids that were, and then there was also a passenger ship. So there were families that were just leaving because they just bought tickets as passengers and left. And then there were the ones who were enrolled in the program to get them out. So that they weren't necessarily paying like passengers on the ship. So it reads, and it's classified as a kid's nonfiction because that's where I found it. So it's, but I would give it to your older middle grade readers. It reads like a novel, even though it is definitely nonfiction. It is just sad, and I go from talking about laughing at Mel Brooks and his humor, and then I'd go to talking about a ship that was carrying kids in World War II and was sunk by a German U-boat. But if you're interested in that type of history or stories that, and yes, it's World War II, and there are so many books written about several, like, all kinds of aspects of World War II, and it feels like we're up to our eyeballs in them. But this is one I had not heard about, and I had not heard, or I had not watched. Like, I don't think any of the YouTube channels that I watch ever covered this one. But it was fascinating and sad, and yes, I definitely needed to listen to Mel Brooks after I read it. But if this is an area of history that interests you, or you have any kind of if you like reading that kind of stuff, then definitely check it out. It's very well done, very well researched. There are some pictures. Like I said, it's one of those sort of reads like a novel, history, nonfiction sort of things, but it's well researched, and you get to know the kids that were on the ship. She treats it like a biography of these children and the other people that were there, taking care of them. So I recommend that one. It is not for the faint of heart, I will say that, but make sure that you're good with that. So I read that one, and I almost submitted it to the nonfiction committee, but I forgot. So, but they may have pulled it up anyway. And then, what else should I? Okay, I'll just go over really quickly. I've been reading a lot of manga, light novels, and and also one. I believe it's pronounced manhwa. It's Korean graphic novel. There's one that's called it's called The Abandoned Empress. I believe it was originally on one of those sort of webcomic websites. I don't know if it was Webtoon or one of the other ones. But it is, so there's a lot. So this one it starts out with this girl, it's in a fantasy kingdom sort of a thing. She is betrothed to, well, no, at this point she's married to the emperor. They're very young, because that's just how it was. And she's only married to the guy because there was a prophecy that she was going to change the world, or by marrying the emperor, she was going to do something incredible. She had no idea what that was, and they don't really like each other, but they're married anyway. And then all of a sudden, a girl from our world isekais into the fantasy world. And for those who need to know, isekai is a Japanese word meaning from another world, but it's kind of become a genre of people from present day ending up in fantasy realms. And the trope has been around forever, but there's been a lot of them in recent years. Anyway, so the girl, and she's from Korea, and the Korean girl falls in love with the emperor. He falls in love with her, and all of a sudden, the emperor or the empress, she's just left out in the cold, and the emperor kind of finds a reason to execute her. That's all in book one, and then she dies. And comes back and is given another chance. So she's sent back to her world as a 10-year-old, but with all of her memories of her previous life intact. And now she's trying to avoid being executed for not being the actual girl from the prophecy, because it was supposed to be this other girl, even though people kind of screwed her over. So it's very interesting, and that all the choices that she makes that are different, because now she realizes, oh, I need to actually take some initiative and control my destiny, as it were. And she does, but then things start to happen that happened in her previous life where she was executed. So I'm on to book 3 of it. There's 7 out so far. It's really good, and I'm enjoying it. So that's a really good one. It's called The Abandoned Empress, and the author usually go by like sort of a pen name. It's Ina, I-N-A. So that's not hard to find. And then these next two are Japanese manga. One is actually also a light novel as well. So there's Yona of the Dawn by Mizuho Kusanagi. And this one, she's a princess. She is going to marry a guy, and then she also has her bodyguard. But then her betrothed is like, he gets impatient, so he actually has her father killed, and so he can become king. And she's like, no, you can't kill him. How dare, like, why did you do that? So he's gonna, imprison her. Well, then the bodyguard saves her, and they're on the run, and they, have to find warriors to help her retake her father's kingdom. And it's reminded me a lot of Fushigi Yugi, just without the whole, person from our present day, but the whole, we got to find our magical warriors who are going to save the kingdom. That element's in play. And I just started reading it. There's like almost 40 volumes of this, so I've got a while to go. I think it's still ongoing, but I'm enjoying it so far. And then another one I'm reading is called My Happy Marriage by Akumi Agitoki. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, but I'm trying, man. This one I believe also has an anime, and it's on Netflix. I've not watched it, but there's a live action version from Japan, which I've seen on YouTube. So there are various ways, but this one is a manga and a light novel. So this one is it takes place in a magical version of one of the historical time periods of Japan. I think I can't remember what it's called. I'd have to look it up. But basically, it's not really the Meiji, where like Western influence was starting to come into Japan. I think it's a little further down, but I could be wrong on that. But point is, there is Western influence in this place along with traditional Japanese culture. But in this world, all the noble families have magic, and so they arrange marriages with their children based on what the different magical talents are. And so to make the strongest bloodline, that kind of thing. So before the main character is even born, her dad was in love with another lady, but his parents did not approve. So they forced him to instead marry this other woman, and they got married, had a baby. That's our main character. Well, at first it seems like she does not have any magic. Well, her mother dies of an illness, although it's hinted at that it's a little bit more complicated than that, but we don't know the details yet. And so then he goes off and marries the woman he wanted to marry, and they have a daughter, and she's got magic, and they treat the older sister like crap because she's the daughter of the woman he didn't want to marry. It's very Cinderella. Well then, so there's this other young lordling of a very prominent family who everybody wants to match their daughters with, and he has tried to propose to these other girls, and they've always rejected him after a day or so for reasons unknown, and it kind of gets out that he's cruel, he's awful, he's a terrible person. So this family just like, well, we're just gonna sell our one daughter to him and just get her out of here. We don't want her. Well, it turns out that they start to fall in love with each other, and they, and she's obviously been abused, treated very poorly, but then all of a sudden she's in this household that's like, well, you might marry our lord, so we're going to treat you well. And then they realize, like, oh my goodness, like, your family has treated you so badly, and this is not a good thing. This is very taboo. And they should be punished for this. In fact, the point, they finally see her out and about with him, and they're like, no, why is she so happy? Why is, she looks better, her health is better, she looks like she's, this is a good thing. We don't want her to be happy, and she needs to, our other daughter should marry this lord. So they kidnap the first daughter and try to force the lord to marry the younger daughter, and it just blows up in their face, and it's so satisfying when they get their comeuppance. it is just like, if you ever read fiction where there's a main character where their family treats them like absolute shite, and you just you see it and you're just like, oh my gosh, these people just need to get thrown out of an airlock. This, I mean, maybe not in so many words, but it happens here, and I'm like, yes, awesome. That's like book. Well, that's like the first 3 books, although the light novel covers it in book 1. So that's awesome. But then there is more. Then there's more shenanigans going on because yes, our main character, she actually does have magic, and her mother's family, kind of didn't tell the whole truth about what their magic entails, because it's actually quite dangerous. And I'm still getting to the point where where those details are explained. So anyway, My Happy Marriage by Akumi Akitogi. The love story is beautiful and lovely and wonderful, and it's these 2 people who are, kind of damaged in different ways, but they grow to love each other, and it's so cute because his servants and his sister at the same time, they come to just love our main character and want what's best for her. In fact, the sister, I mean, this is a convention in Japanese culture, but the sister starts calling her little sister, and I'm like, oh, she just needs somebody. She just needs somebody to care about her, and it makes me happy. So anyway, so that's a good one. I definitely want to check out the anime and or the live action versions when I can. That's gonna be a trick, but anyway, so far I'm enjoying it. So if you are into graphic novels or web comics or anything like that, those are my recommendations. And I have more, but I'm going to let someone else do a little bit of talking. So someone jump in here.
I'll hop in with one of mine. I'm going to do my historical fiction story, which is at the bottom of the list. It's called Uprising by Margaret Peterson Haddix.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a true story, historical. It's based off the Triangle Factory shirtwaist fire of the early 1900s, and it follows the story of 3 girls, 2 immigrants, Bella, Yetta, and then Jane, who is a native of New York and high society, and how their lives all kind of intertwine, and how certain things lead to the tragic with the girls being in the factory, because we find out that at the end of the story, only one of the 3 winds up surviving. Yes.
That
so
is
I
the
don't want to
part with these historical or historical fiction. It's like, I mean, you know in your head, it's like, oh yeah, people died during this tragedy, but you don't want it to be the characters that you like really love, but
right.
there's a chance of that happening.
Yeah.
It's a gut punch, but you're like, it's realistic.
My students are reading it right now, and they're absolutely enjoying it. My mom's even read it. She's just like, it's good. She thinks she might have read it before, but she's not 100% sure, or something very similar. So, but it's a good short. It's a 300-page read, but it's really good. So,
and if you want to, I mean, it being historical fiction, based on true events.
If there's a lot.
Because I even
factory fire.
I would say even now I don't know how many people know about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory incident and just how
that
horrible it was.
Yeah, and how it's for everything with safety procedures.
Yeah,
and
when
all
talking
that.
about worker safety and inhumane working conditions, it's one of the absolute worst examples of this is how you don't run a business unless you don't have a soul.
There's a couple documentaries about the fire, and the one that I've enjoyed the most, HBO actually did one. I believe it was called Spark, and that was the better of the 2. The PBS one was good, but that focused more on like because also this was during the time when the women's suffrage vote was going on as well. So you had that, and then the strike protests for the ladies for better pay, better working conditions. That one was all right, but the HBO one actually interviewed some relatives, great relatives of some of the people that either didn't make it or made it out. So it was kind of interesting to hear their side.
This did sound familiar, but I guess the I Survive series, there is not one on this one. I thought there might be, but it's not there. Not saying it won't happen, because she seems to write about all kinds of even obscure, famous and obscure things. But that's wild.
Yes. And the next one, I think, Rachel, you want to join me on this one? Because this one we both read.
It's on both our lists. Yes.
Yes.
And just like Chrissy was saying, you get a bit more listening to the audiobook version as opposed to reading the physical book.
That you do. Yes. Because
that was definitely the case for this particular book.
Yes. Because I read it through by myself, and then I'm just like, I picked up the audiobook because they had a free Audible credit. And I'm just like, and I sat and re-listened to it. And there's just something about Patrick Stewart telling these tales that is just, I mean, it gives new meaning to the Beatles song, Baby, You Can Drive My Car.
Yeah. Yeah. This is Sir Patrick Stewart's memoir.
Yes.
Making it so, which he finished last year, actually. So this is very new. And it's the story of his life. And the thing is,
laughing, cheers. I mean,
you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry. He's been
the serendipity of all the stuff that he's actually lucked into is just like, holy freaking cowboy.
It's and he thankfully, some celebrities, they like to keep some things private, which is totally understandable. And then, there's some celebrities that I think try to make themselves look better than they actually are. Sir Patrick does not do that. He absolutely recognizes where he has done wrong, like cheating on his wife and then cheating on his second wife, he's not made some not so good choices. He struggled with alcohol for a while. He's not always been the best father. He talks about even now, like he has a son, a bit of a relationship with his son. His daughter wants nothing to do with him. So, but it's and he's been very open about the fact that his father was an abusive son of a bitch. So he is very much a proponent of those who have suffered domestic violence, seeing what it did to his mother.
Of his actions, that I'm acting like my dad here. I should. That's just like, no, I need to backtrack.
And it's. And his the fact that he grew up in kind of BFE England up until like he finally got to go to like London late as like a teenager or a young adult, and finally got to visit like a population, because even like he went to some like prestigious schools, like acting schools, but they were out in the country, so they're out in the middle of nowhere. So he's very isolated. So when he would meet, he'd have these moments where like he would meet someone and have no idea who they are. Even now, he recognizes he is very ignorant to pop culture. So
especially when he was filming Dune.
And Sting. He didn't know who Sting was.
It's like
all he had heard was Sting was a musician. So when he finally gets a chance to sit down and chat with Sting, and he's like, "Oh, I heard you're a musician." He's like, "What instrument do you play?" And Sting's like, "Well, I play guitar and bass and stuff like that." Yeah. And he's like, "Oh,
double bass."
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
as opposed to
guitar.
The bass, like what also Paul McCartney plays.
Mhm.
And he's and he's like, "Oh, do you perform in a band or something?" And Sting's all like, "Yeah, oh yeah, the Police." And Patrick thinks a police band, not the band called the Police.
Yes.
Like he's a police officer, then like their precinct has like a band or something.
Well,
There's so many. He has
one of
several
those side
instances
bands.
like that where he is just clueless to popular culture, because he will admit, in his spare time, if he's listening to music, it's classical music. If he's reading anything, it's like Shakespeare or Dickens or very classical English literature, and he does not divert from that. So he knows nothing about what's going on with the rest of the world.
Though his current wife is trying to break him of that with the music habit.
It helps that she's a little younger.
Yes. And I love sometimes that he knows that Frakes is going to call him out and needle him. He's like, "Enough, Frakes."
Yeah.
Like, stop it now.
Yeah, it's really fun, but to listen to, to hear the names being mentioned, the people he's encountered. He went to drama school for a little while and a drama camp with Brian Blessed. So that's all the fun to hear about Sir Patrick talk about. And Brian Blessed apparently has been Brian Blessed since he was a teenager. So
yeah. I don't find that very surprising at all.
Yeah, the person you see in Flash Gordon and Doctor Who is that's just Brian Blessed, going by a different name for that particular character. So
yes,
and then one of my personal favorites mentions during the 70s, because he talks about he was ever since he was young, he was very quick to fancy the ladies. So he had himself a number of girlfriends from a young age, and several not so serious, but also some serious relationships, but did not necessarily turn into marriages, because he's been married 3 times. But during the 70s, for a while, he dated a young lady named Janet, who ultimately, when she became a professional actress, changed her last name so that she went by the name Janet Sussman. So Patrick Stewart dated Nick's cousin in the 70s.
Oh my goodness.
Like, Cousin Janet. I like the entire time I'm like, I know this woman.
We need some tea on that, my dear.
Yeah, I've got a
Lisa,
picture.
thank you.
I've got a picture Nick shared of her and Patrick together.
Oh,
so
cool.
I'll have to pop it in the show notes so y'all can see it. But yeah,
it's cool.
We need to have a whole podcast episode of the
6 degrees of Cousin Janet.
Janet, yes.
That's kind of what it feels like.
Seriously, it's like, how many times has she popped up?
A lot. She pops up just every now and then, and I'm like, it's like, I know her.
And this is so cool.
Like, she's like family.
Pretty much.
She dated Patrick Stewart.
I mean, this is a fantastic read, and I mean, getting to with the Star Trek and how they talked him into doing Picard, and that final season, him kind of loosening up his demands, and that him even saying, "I want to do one more movie, but with Picard," and I 100% agree with him. Jonathan Frakes needs to direct, and heck, even if not write the story. Because Frakes has done some good writing. His directing is just spot on awesome. He's done Next Gen, but he's done quite a few episodes. Chrissy, you've watched Leverage. Fantastic job. He's done stuff with the librarians. He's done.
He did the librarians.
Picard.
Frakes he's an awesome director.
Yeah, he gets it.
Did he direct? I feel like he might have directed some of the new Picard series.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And then he's also directed a couple of episodes of Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
Which is the newest Star Trek spinoff. And he's also, I believe, if memory serves, he is doing episodes for the 3rd upcoming season of Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
So he knows his stuff.
Oh, well, yes. Yes.
It was funny because I was listening to this late last year, and I was in, smack dab in the middle of, I got into all the Star Trek stuff by the time I had to make the commute from here to Columbus, Ohio for GalaxyCon. And there's a number of the Next Gen cast at GalaxyCon, and I'm just like, I'm listening to Patrick Stewart talk about you.
Can you confirm or deny what he's written about?
Yeah.
Like, was this really you?
Yeah.
Was he just being nice, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah. Yeah. So well, because you just have to listen to it, but it's definitely in the same vein where when it's read by the person, you just get something different because one, it's them. They are obviously emotionally attached to what is being said, even though there's some really great memoirs out there that are narrated by someone else. It's just not quite the same when it's, the person telling their own story. And Patrick does things like he'll laugh at himself at stories, stupid stuff he did when he was a kid. He makes voices, so it's not like he's just reading it. He is treating it like he is telling a story.
Well, and it's like, when you're talking with, like, you're a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or somebody, and it's like they were actually there, so they're not just reading off a script or doing their own interpretation of it. It's like, no, I was actually there, and so it feels a lot more authentic because, well, it is, first of all. So anytime you can get, and like we said, not every memoir the person that it's about is going to read it, but if you can listen to that person tell their own story, absolutely do, because it's a treat. So,
absolutely.
Yes.
So,
Rachel, why don't you dive into yours, and then I'll finish up with my last 2 for Star Trek.
Yeah. Oh goodness, where do I? It's like, where do I want to go? Because I have a lot of nonfiction, and you could probably sense the theme with a lot of these titles. So, and the ones in my in progress list too, because I have a couple I'm in the middle of reading right now. But also in my nonfiction, I have this one called Cast, and it's Caste. And it's written by Isabel Wilkerson. And she is a journalist, and she's a woman of color. And this book is essentially racism, the history of racism, not just in the United States, but across the world. So it talks about, the goose steppers, and the caste system. You've probably heard it most when talking about India. And it compares those 3 along with some others and how it has shaped society. in the last 150-ish years or so. And
caste system in India that goes back centuries.
Well, yeah, but it's trying to compare something that old to something that we remember better. And his also kind of it still kind of exists even now today. But yeah, it talks about it both from a she covers it from lots of different angles, both from religious, science, economics, government, all sorts of different aspects, and things that you may not necessarily think about, that are kind of have been embedded into society to the point where it's subconscious. We're not even realizing the way that we are being pushed in certain directions or being affected, by certain things. So it's, and she has her own stories. She also talks to a number of experts and other people that have had their own experiences. And this has actually been adapted into a movie that was just released earlier this year theatrically, called Origin. And you've probably seen the trailer for it, but it is essentially the story of Isabel writing this book and her journeys going to like Germany and India, and places like that. But that it was released in theaters January 19th, so check your local theater on if you want to see it. So, but it's a really good book. I don't know about the movie. Apparently the movie's gotten pretty good reviews. But if you're kind of like me, where you're just kind of like, especially in today's world, where you're just kind of like, what the hell is going on? Why are we having these issues? And why are people so busy to like butt heads and not like work together for the betterment of all of us? This is at least gives us some explanation of kind of how we got here. And she
and it's going to take a long time to change it.
yeah, because it's so systemic. But I have a fascination with like psychology and psychiatry and like anthropology and why humans act the way they do, and so a book like this totally speaks to me. So great, she's one woman with some other experts and historians giving their 2 cents. So this obviously it's not the be all to end all, but it's, if you're interested in that sort of thing of why does society tick the way it does right now, this at least gives you some place to start with some of those answers to questions that you might have.
Interesting.
So and then in I also have been like on a biography kick. This list could be a whole lot longer, but I was trying to temper myself. So, and I just picked up some more too, because like some actual physical books. Like I just picked up one of Chelsea Handler's memoirs because she's written several. I just picked up Martin Short's memoir. So it's
David Grohl's Storytellers is also good.
Yeah, I've got that on my list of to read. I really like, and she's written several, so this is only one of them. But it is one of Carol Burnett's books. So in this case, it's in such good company. But she's got several books. So some of these people with a longer career have got multiple books out there. But one that I do have on this list specifically is Dying of Politeness, which is Gina Davis's memoir, which again, if you listen to the audiobook, she's the one that reads it, and it is so funny and touching. Because she comes from it's literally Dying of Politeness. She comes from this family that's a long line of people that don't want to be a bother, to the point where it almost like the book I think it's early on in the book where she remembers when she was a child, and like they were coming home from church or something on a Sunday afternoon, and her grandfather was driving. Her grandmother was in the passenger seat. She was in the back with like her parents. And at some point, like her grandfather veered into the other lane, and they were out in like the country. So it was just like a 2-lane road, but still he veered over into the other lane and didn't notice. And for a while, nobody said anything because there wasn't any traffic, but eventually another car started coming towards them.
Boy. And
at the last second, he realizes and veers back over. And then I can't remember if it's like her grandmother, her mother was like, says something along the lines of, "Oh, that's good, dear. I was going to say something."
Goodness.
Like these people, it's like they just want to be so nice and polite to everybody. And when she got started as an actress, that was not working in her favor, because Hollywood could be very cutthroat. But she's never wanted to be one of those stars in Hollywood that gets a reputation of being like the bitch, or difficult to work with or whatever. Although obviously there are some stars out there that are notoriously like hard to work with, but people are like, oh, they're so good, they put up with it. Gina never wanted to be like that, so she's always tried to be kind and at least not be standoffish or bitchy to anybody. So she tries to treat everyone as a human being, whether you're the person getting coffee or you're the director and everyone in between. And I think I mentioned this story briefly. I forget what we were talking about. It was another episode where she talks about when they were filming A League of Their Own. And she gets there and they're getting settled in and doing like table reads and starts rehearsing and stuff, and she meets Tom Hanks, and she gets royally pissed off at how nice he is and how he seems to be nicer than her. It's like, I want to be known as the nicest person in Hollywood. Here comes Tom Hanks being apparently even nicer than her, and how dare he be that nice? So
it's the nice Olympics. If you
yes.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, but she's had an interesting time in Hollywood, and even outside of Hollywood. Like at one point, she was close to getting on the Olympic team for archery.
Okay.
So, she's, and now she's got her own, organization, the Gina Davis Institute, that, does like analysis and research and stuff on, women in different jobs and such, and how women can get a leg up in certain industries. So but yeah, it was just like she's so funny because she just realizes how absurd, it all is. How she was raised and how she's had to kind of learn to break some. It's almost like, you don't want to say being polite is a bad habit, but in this case, it kind of is.
It can be.
So,
it really can be.
Yeah.
Which I have had to learn a few things about that.
Yeah.
In my line of work and working with the public.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bless them, but sometimes not.
Yes. Bless your heart.
Yes. Which is, she was from the South. That's exactly the way it would be, except she's from New England. So.
Well. Southerners.
This is the New England equivalent of bless your heart.
Yeah, Southerners have a way of telling you to go F yourself, and you will enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm. Right. Sometimes you don't even know that they're telling you to do that.
This is true.
You're just like, oh, thank you, I will.
They're wrong. It's telling you how to go to hell. But I like mixing up go F yourself sometimes because I'm just like, no. Anyway. Oh yeah, I get it. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So here's a couple.
All right.
Chrissy, were there any other ones that you wanted to mention?
Oh my gosh, I'm only halfway through my list. I mean, Rachel said that she was trying to temper, or to kind of keep things in check, and I'm just kind of like, here's everything. Actually, no, it's not everything, because if I want to do everything, it would have been the picture books, because I found some really fantastic picture books lately. But no, so I'll go into my next little section here, and these are all audiobooks. So I don't know if people have noticed. Well, I mean, bookish people will probably have noticed, but there has been a resurgence of romantic fantasy, and to the point that they've started calling it romantasy. And I'm going to get on my soapbox here. That is the dumbest term in the world for calling for any genre. I hate it. It's cringy. Stop doing that. But I know I'm yelling into the wind because Goodreads actually has for their award thing best romantasy, but then they got rid of the best children's and picture book category. So I'm a little miffed at them for that. But
that does not compute. They should not have gotten rid of those.
No, they really shouldn't have. But it's sort of this thing because especially Rebecca Yarros, which I have on my list, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, which I feel like everyone and their mother has read, and honestly, they are fantastic books. They really, really are, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it's like, okay, this isn't a new genre. It's been or subgenre. It's been around forever. It's been around for a really long time, and the way how I know this is the first series in my little section that I have on my list here is the Terran Soul series by C.L. Wilson, and this series is it came out. The first book came out in early 2000s, I believe, or somewhere between early to mid 2000s. And I picked it up several years ago, and I read it, and I loved it. But somewhere along the line, and there's like 5 books, and it tells one story, and it's kind of like, okay, think of like a Brandon Sanderson series, or Robert Jordan, or I don't want to compare it to George R.R. Martin because this series is actually finished.
Yeah. Kind of like the Telltale series by Durst or Burst.
Yeah. So this series it's a fantasy, but romance features very heavily in it too, because the whole point of it. Okay, so and the world building. There's a lot of really great world building. It's kind of why I compared it to Brandon Sanderson, but it's not as dense. So don't think like if you go pick up the first book that you're going to get this humongous brick of a book that you're going to read.
It's not like the Mistborn from Sanderson.
No. Well, Mistborn, yes, but it's not like Way of Kings where you're just like, oh my gosh, I've dropped this on my toe, I'm going to break my foot. So there's 5 books in the series. First one is called Lord of the Fading Lands. The second one is Lady of Light and Shadows. The third is King of Sword and Sky. The fourth one is Queen of Song and Souls. Soul and Songs. Can't remember. And the last one is Crown of Crystal Flame. and it's one long continuous story, and it's in this fantasy world, and it starts with this young girl. Well, okay, she's not young; she's like in her mid-20s. And she was a baby. She was found in the woods, just abandoned, and her adopted parents, so like her adopted father's a wood carver. They live in a village, and they couldn't have kids of their own, so they take her in. But she also, like, as she gets older, she exhibits some magic, and there are parts of this. So what I love about this series is there's a fully realized world, and there's like the humans, there's the fae, there are the elves, and then there are the eld, which when you're listening to the audiobook, that they talk, the eld are the bad guys. They use dark magic. They use their magic to control people and manipulate, and they treat all of the, like the high mage of eld actually has captives, like human and fae captives, that he is using them as a breeding program to build up his giant army. He's a bad dude, like the worst of the worst. Just, there is nothing about him that is good or nothing. No,
redeemable.
Yeah, these are demonic, awful people. There is no coming back from them. So like years ago, there was this war between the Fae and the Eld, and everybody else came in, and so the Fae, in their realm, the way their magic works is it's very much tied to your soul. There's a lot of talk about the soul in this series, and like, they have their warriors, which their men are the warriors, and then their women are their healers. Now the women have to be protected at all costs, because women are extremely empathetic. That's how their magic works. And if they come in contact with somebody who, like, okay, I'll use, I'm kind of all over the place, but they come in contact with somebody who has, like one of their warriors who's killed a lot of people. Every time they take a life, it impacts their soul to the point that if they do not find their true mate, who is the other half of their soul, they are going to either have to perform an honor death or be outcast as one of the soulless, in their language, of the Fae, and they cannot be part of their realm, because it would physically harm their women to be in contact or even be near somebody who has basically lost their soul. So you don't see a lot of Fae women outside of the Fading Lands. Well, their king is the only one who is what they call a Terran soul, and a Terran is a magical creature that's kind of a cross between a very large cat and a bat. They have wings, and they have their own culture and their own magic, and they're very innately tied to the Fae, to the point that some Fae actually have a soul that's called the Terran soul, which means they are all actually part of the pride of Terran. And whoever is the strongest Terran soul is like their ruler of the Fae. Well, after the Mage Wars, it all just kind of got upended, because the Mage Wars just basically ripped the world apart. And their leader, his name is Rain Terran Soul, and he's been in exile because he went mad after his heart mate, which is not the same as a true mate, she was killed in the war. Well, it turns out the Terran are dying, the Fae's magic is dying, and they haven't had children in a really long time, and he needs to figure out how. So he goes to sort of the oracle of their people, which is like this, it's the seeing eye, and it tells him, go to the mortal capital city, and he meets our main character, Elisetta, who is the girl that was found in the woods all those many years ago. And she has magic, and a lot of weird things happen around her. Her parents kind of get freaked out by it, but she's a good kid, and her parents love her. They raise her well, and eventually, and it finds out later that she used her magic, not intentionally, but made it so her mother could have a child, and she has twin little sisters. So it's just sort of this whole story of the elder coming back. The black magic is is set to, wreak havoc on the world. The Fae are coming back as well, and the Terran soul is going to find its true mate, and they are going to have to. And it turns out Elised is actually a Fae herself, but her birth parents, had to hide her because the Elder after her, and different things. And it's very in depth, very rich, and the romance really plays a huge part in the story because it's basically life or death for the Fae that these two are together, and they find their true mate bond. So it's really cool because you kind of feel like if you love those deep world built fantasy worlds, and if you want a good romance to go along with it, then this is the one for you. And they're actually reissuing these books with new covers because the old covers, huh?
Very cool.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you said wait. I was like,
no. Oh, neat.
What I do? So I just
NEHT.
bought, yeah. So I just bought Lord of the Fading Lands with the new cover. It was at Walmart a couple weeks ago, so I bought that. So they're gonna slowly, but the audiobooks are pretty good. They have a couple of different readers for the books throughout because I think they were done several years ago. So it can be a little tricky, but I've been listening to them, but they're pretty good, and I'm almost done with the fourth book. And hopefully, if my rambling description of the story, because there's a lot more to it, and it's not like these are huge books, so it's not like it's a big time commitment. Like you're gonna have to like the audiobooks are maybe like 12 hours long. It's not that time consuming. I mean, they're about as the books themselves are about as big as like a paperback romance that you'd find at the grocery store or Walmart or wherever. So don't think that you're getting some enormous, oh my gosh, this is going to take my entire life to read, but it's still it's in depth. You feel like you could just dive into this world and just live in it, and the characters are very likable, except for the ones who aren't, but there's a purpose for that. And there's even among the good guys, there are some rivalries, and some of them just don't get along because of certain outlooks on their culture and politics and whatnot. So they feel like they're real people. So I recommend that series. So it's called The Terran Soul. Terran is Taren. Terran Soul series by C.L. Wilson. She has a couple other series, but one of them's on hiatus. But Terran Soul's complete, so you can read that one and not feel like you're on a cliffhanger or anything like that. So don't feel bad about doing that. And then also, in that same romantic fantasy vein, I have another funny story to tell. So I'm sure some of you may have heard of Sarah J. Maas. She writes fantasy with romance in it, and some of her books are cataloged as YF, some are cataloged as adult. I kind of don't care because they're both pretty good, although I'm sure some parents of teenagers would have something to say about that. But just know what if you're teen, like I would say adult or not, like older teen, probably be a good fit for this. But know what your limits are as far as content goes. So I'm not going to tell you yes or no whether it should be teen or adult. Not my job. Oddly enough. So I but there were teens who were asking, where is the Court of Thorn and Roses series? And I just and there was like the whole list.
Of course, I know it on the internet. ACOTAR,
yes, that one. And I'd heard of it, but I knew it had been out for a while, and I'm like, why are there so many holds on this? Because it's not brand new, and I guess there was this new-ish book in the series that came out, but I was like, I just want to know what's going on. Like, is there a movie? Is there a series? What's going on? So I'm like, I just want to read this and see what it is. So I get on Libby because that's just sort of my go-to at this point, and I'm looking for the audiobook. Well, there's also there's an audiobook that I could put on hold. There's also graphic audio, which for those of us who have listened to Big Finish, it's basically Big Finish audio, full cast audio. And I'm like,
With
cool,
sound
I like
effects
this.
and
Sound effects, multiple people playing character. They're all playing different characters, but there is a narrator. Then it follows the book. It's not like a movie adaptation because movies have to do things differently, but they are way more faithful, I guess, than a movie would be. So I get on the wait list for both the audiobook and the graphic audio because I'm like, well, I'm gonna hedge my bets. So I do that, and the graphic audio comes in first. So I'm like, okay, cool, and it's split into two parts. So you get like part, you have the graphic audio is book one, part one, and there's book one, part two. So I did all that, and I listened to it, and it's amazing. The graphic audio of A Court of Thorn and Roses and the others and all the rest are just fantastic. I don't know how the audiobook is, just the regular audiobook is. In fact, although I have heard from people like, oh yeah, I tried to read that and I just couldn't get into it. And I'm kind of like, okay, it happens. But I am just like, oh my gosh, listen to the graphic audio. It is, I think it's just having that different interpretation, hearing different characters read in different ways really makes a difference. And so
Okay.
I know people are kind of funny about Sarah Moss, about her, like, they're like, oh, I don't know if I could get into it, or there's just something about her writing that I'm not cool with, or whatever. I mean, and if that's the case, fair enough. I get it. Like, there are books that everybody loves and they won't shut up about, and then I finally read them. I'm like, this sucks. What is wrong with you? But
been there, done that.
Yeah, I know.
No.
I know.
Chrissy, quick question for you. What's the difference between a graphic audio and an audiobook? This is the first time I'm hearing of a graphic audio.
Okay, a graphic audio that's a full cast audio. So if you've listened to a Big Finish, you've listened to graphic audio. It's the same kind of thing. An audio book is just a narrator reading the story.
Okay. All right.
Which is fine, which is totally fine. And you would just
and the graphic audio would have more like sound effects versus
they have sound effects. They have different people playing different parts. With this series, like the girl who plays Feyre, who's the main female character. She reads because the book is all from her point of view. Although I think later books there are other characters who we follow their point of view as well. So whoever's point of view we're following, that's who's narrating the book, or doing the narration parts. But the dialogue, and then if there's, if it says so and so made a non-committal grunt, or something like that, like a vocalization that isn't necessarily words. So it's like they have a script, but they take out about a lot of the he said, she said, because it's just that character reading that part. So like, oh, that's the voice that does like Tamlin or whoever, or whatever character. That's the voice that does Rhysand, or that's the voice that does, So yeah. So if you have listened, okay, so maybe I don't want to say it's fully like a Big Finish audio because there's still the narration part in there, but it's very similar. So if you like radio plays, if you're into that kind of thing, you will. This is something that you maybe even if you're like, oh, I don't think I could do audiobooks because my mind wanders or what have you. Maybe this is a way to do it. And there's lots of books. Like, just you can get on Libby or Audible or wherever and just kind of search graphic audio, and you'll actually be surprised at how many books have been made into graphic audio. So I know Brandon Sanderson's have, Alona Andrews, their books have been done.
Several Neil Gaiman's have.
Yes.
So just kind of, I mean, you'll kind of be shocked. Some of Michael J. Sullivan's have been done that way too. A lot of fantasy, because I guess they figure, well, some of these we're never going to get a faithful movie adaptation, but I think we can manage a graphic audio sort of thing. So it's kind of cool that way. So anyway, Court of Thorn and Roses was amazing as graphic audio. So if you're still like, well, I kind of want to get into it, but I don't know if I can, give it a try. But I actually went in and for my birthday last year, I asked him for some extra Audible credits so I could get the whole series just for myself, so I can listen to it whenever. So there's that. But yeah, I've kind of really gotten into Sarah J. Maas, her stories, her books. I mean, a lot of it is that fantasy with some romance, but it's very focused on the fantasy world and the conflict and the things like that. But there's but the love stories are definitely there, which I am in favor of because I love a good love story. I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but if and sometimes it can be hard to find one that's like, oh yes, I really do like this, and not like, this isn't my thing. But anyway, so if you're into that, there you go. So yeah. And then the other two I had on this section, there was, like I said, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I like them. I'm not going to say they're like, I mean, because there are some things I'm kind of like, okay, maybe this isn't my thing, but then there's parts I'm like, ooh, I'm enjoying this. This is great. So I would give it. I mean, there are people that wet themselves over these books, which fair enough. If that's your thing, go for it. But I'm like, no, yeah, these are good. These are fun. I'm not going to pretend like it's the best thing ever, but I'm also not going to pretend that I think it's hot garbage, because it's not. But it's the same sort of thing. Like, the world is ending, or well, maybe not the world is ending, but crap is happening, and so it's basically these kids, or more like college kids in terms of age, honestly. But they go to this military academy to learn how to be dragon riders, and the main character is the daughter of the general, and she's actually not very physically fit to be a military individual, but her mother makes her do it because that's what her children are all going to do, which is silly, but whatever. But there's reasons for it. So the second book came out a few months ago, and that was the big hotness. And I listened to the audiobook of that one, and it's cool. It's really awesome. I do enjoy it. I love the interactions because she gets her dragon, and her boyfriend has a dragon, and her boyfriend's actually one of the ones, a child of one of the rebels from the last war, and they're being punished for their parents' loss, sort of in a Hunger Games kind of way. But yeah, so it's like the relationship's really good. There's not a lot of like angsty drama between them, although there's plenty of angsty drama because of their circumstances and what's going on in the war and with their dragons. So it's the fantasy aspect of it that I'm like, oh, this is affecting their situation just the way it is. So anyway, so I kind of get into that. So it's good. I also love because it reads like a YA novel, which might be off-putting to some people, but I will say this: a YA novel would have been artificially split up because money, dear boy, at certain points where these books are not split up. In fact, they are the like that where so halfway through book one is when Violet, who is the main protagonist, she gets her dragon. And I think if this had been in a traditional, or if this book had been written like 10 or 12 years ago, that's where book one would have ended. But there's a lot more story to go, so it doesn't end there. And I'm like, thank you for that. I am so tired of a book ending before it really needs to, just because we got to stretch this out because the publishing company needs to, have a money maker in quarter three or something.
We need to turn something into a cash cow.
Yes, pretty much. So this one, and I'm sure with the popularity of it, because it's, like I said, people are wetting themselves over it. I'm sure it has been optioned for a movie or a series of some kind. So I would not be surprised if we had heard like some sort of casting announcement. But for now, I'm like, I'm enjoying the book. I really do. And the audiobook is pretty good. There are some things that I'm just kind of like, I don't really care about. Or, maybe I would have done something a little different in this scene or with this character, but it's not a deal breaker for me. So I enjoy it. So it's a good fantasy with romance in it. So I'm having a good time. And then also, just to kind of round this out, there is the Elfhame series by Holly Black, which I listened to in audio. This one is pretty much a straight up a YF or YA. I mean, young adult. We catalog them as youth fiction, but so we say YF, but it's
and
YA.
Holly Black is a good author because I've read some of her other works.
Now she's one that I have been like hit and miss with personally, but if if you are like, yes, I love her, she's great, then that's great, that's awesome. Don't let me rain on your parade. But I really like.
I agree. Some of them are better than some of her books are better than others. Just depends.
I just remember there was one of hers that was on the teen long list for the Beehive Awards some years ago, and I just could not get into it. But everyone else insisted it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I'm just kind of like, well, good for you. But yeah, I really like this one. It starts out with The Cruel Prince is the first book, and there is some romance, and you can kind of tell who the main love interest is going to be, but he's actually a big old jerk at the beginning, because it's these girls. Anyway, it's the Fae and the mortals again, and their mother was married to a fairy in their world, but she ran away, but she was pregnant, so they took so their older sister, who was half Fae, was actually because she's actually the Fae's the Fae general's heir, but she marries a mortal guy. So the twin girls are mortal, but then the dad of the older sister comes back, kills the mom and the dad, the mortal parents, because he wants his heir, and he just takes all the girls and raises them in the Fae world, because that's
like
what
you do.
Like you do, and he's. So anyway, but the one twin sister, she really wants to prove herself. She wants to, like, hey, I'm just as good as all you Fae. The other twin sister is like, no, don't make waves. We're in enough trouble as it is. Our situation isn't that great. Which I could see that. And there were times when the one sister, I'm just kind of like, okay, like the one who wants to be like some big wig in the Fae world. I'm like, look, you just need to cool your jets, kid, because you're gonna get somebody killed, probably yourself. But
don't be in a hurry to grow up, get into power, do those things.
It's like you know what, it's not like the Fae are really that good to him anyway. And the kicker is the half Fae sister, she wants nothing to do with the Fae. She actually wants to go back and live in the mortal realm, which I'm like. Which the Fae general, I'm like, okay, if she's your heir, why aren't you freaking out more on her than the other two? I'm just gonna say, Fae in this Elfhame kingdom, not the best parents. I'm just gonna say that.
So he doesn't sound like he's going to be winning any parenting awards anytime soon.
And it kind of sounds almost like most of the typical Fae.
Yes.
Stuff I've read, but with a little bit of a twist.
Yeah, pretty much. So
they're so fickle.
They are. They're very much like if you've read Dresden Files,
yeah. So yeah.
Very different than the earlier ones I was talking about in Terran Soul. Terran Soul, they're actually nice. I'm like, I actually want to hang out with some of you, but not you. But yeah, I enjoyed it in the end, just because, the one sister, her name's Jude. She grows a lot. There's a lot of growth there, and she learns a lot, and she becomes something that she was not in the beginning, because she was almost insufferable in the beginning, but there was some real good character growth there, and she got her happy ending that she deserved. And she earned it. So I was happy with how it ended. And I guess there are some other spin-off books that have come out from Holly Black. So, but this is another one I listened to the audiobook, and I really enjoyed it. So anyway, so that's my next section. I'm gonna let Holly and Rachel talk about a few more of their other ones, because I've been talking a lot, and I hope I didn't confuse everybody with all these fantasy and fae and whatever else. I'm like, well, that's sort of That's sort of the in thing these days. Although some of them have kind of been around for a long time. But anyway, Rachel and Holly, what else? What else you guys have on your lists?
My last two are two Star Trek novels by a somewhat heavy hitter, Peter David. The first one is a Star Trek Next Generation novel. It's number 18. It's called Q-in-Law. So you can imagine who shows up. It's Q. So basically the story is Picard has to help with these two warring families, almost Romeo and Juliet. The kids are going to get married. Laxwana, Troy, Deanna's mama, is one of the delegates. So you can just imagine Picard's freaking out. This is set during like early season 2, 3.
Just the idea of Deanna's mother in the same story as Q.
Oh, it gets good. Oh yes,
that's just chaos.
It's worth the read. I wish this one could have been made into a movie,
or at least an episode.
Yeah, at least because Laxwana is kind of in mourning because Deanna hasn't gone off and married, found her true love. She's on the spaceship. Q's up to his old
because her true love is Riker.
Exactly. Yes, this is true. Just give it 8 more years, Laxwana. You'll be happy. So basically, Q meets Laxwana and he gives her powers of the Q.
Oh God.
And kind of pretends that he falls in love. And everybody's just telling Laxwana, don't do this. You do not know Q. And she's just like, she's getting pissed off. She's like, give him the benefit of the doubt. Da, 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 da. Well, she sees his true colors. And let's just say Q tries to take his powers back. There's another Q that lets her have the powers. And the last 10 to 15 pages of Laxwana beating Q's ass is kind of very interesting. I mean, and Worf is just sitting there like popcorn. Mm-hmm.
I imagine most of the crew of the Enterprise would be like,
oh yes. They're just like, oh, should we stop? Oh, no. Mama Troy's got this.
Let it reach its natural ending.
Yes, please and thank you.
This is the circle of life. We're gonna let the lion chase the gazelle.
Yes, exactly.
And we're not gonna interfere with the natural order of things.
Yeah, I mean, even Guinan's just like, okay, I'm not gonna stop because basically Deanna kind of almost has it out with Q in the 10-4 about like, you leave my mother alone. You hurt her. I'm going to squash you like a bug. And Q's just like, who are you talking to? And Guinan's just like, kind of in between them. But I mean, it's a short read, but it's good if you can find a copy. The other one is a Deep Space Nine one. It's early first season. This is the one I talked to you ladies last week after we had wrapped with. It's kind of a creepy base under siege, but basically Odo winds up and the rest of the Deep Space Nine crew have to solve this shape-shifting murder and not get the point, Odo getting blamed again for being the one that's doing this. And then there's a side story with some beliefs and whatnot. And Miles trying to help Keiko out with her school, and then Quark trying to buy Deep Space Nine with another Ferengi. This goes just like, nice try. And I mean, and Odo is just like, you wouldn't believe what I heard at the bar, in the form of a table, which they're none the wiser. Mm-hmm. So, and then of course, Miles's daughter's birthday is coming up and he wants to do something, card trick, whatnot. So long story short, at the end, I mean, and the dialogue is spot on. If you've ever seen Deep Space Nine with Odo and the snappy, sarcastic comebacks, Peter David's got it down
Oh,
to
good.
the T.
Good.
And the ending is just like, Miles is like, okay, I helped you out with this. We got the bad guy. I'm not going to tell you how the bad guy bites it in the end, but yes, spoiler alert, he does die, but it's kind of interesting how he winds up dying. And Odo, his way of becoming and doing a favor is he shapeshifts into a pony for Miles' daughter's birthday.
Nice.
And he's just like, "No, Molly, we can only have this pony for the one day." And he's talking, he's like, Mr. Odo kind of helped me out, but he doesn't tell her that the pony's Odo. And she's like, "Daddy, can I name him Fluffy?" "Oh, sure you can." And and you can just, and some of the response from Odo was just like, just be nice. This is for a 3-year-old.
This is for Molly.
Don't rain on her parade. And the other one that
it's for Molly, so Odo could, because she could ask very nicely, and he would become the pony anytime she wanted him to.
Right, exactly.
So it's not that big a deal.
No, it's not. But
Odo is very nice like that.
Yes. So these are two good ones, and I'm reading Q Squared, which is I'm reading right now. It's basically with from this, can't remember, the early Star Trek with Trelawney from the original series, where he's supposed to be a Q, and he and main Q kind of have their own little fighty. Let's read Havoc, so I'm rereading that one. But Peter David is, if you're looking for good Star Trek novels to read, he's a go-to. Diane Duane's done some. John Peel. There's quite a few. But these two, Peter David, there's something in the way that he writes the dialogue. It's just like, boom, movie, episode of TV. And these two were short reads, like 273 pages. So not very long, but very entertaining. Cool. Just alone with Laxwana, just beating the crap out of Q.
I've seen that one in used bookstores, and it never occurred to me to actually pick it up, considering how much Q is one of my absolute favorite Star Trek characters of all time. Yeah. So
any of the Q novels that are out there that I have read are fantastic. There's just something about the authors when they get the chance to write for the Q character, and chalk it up to,
I think, just because the
Farpoint, or John Delancey. There's just something about that combination. It's just, you love to hate, but you can't. It's just like, gimme.
Yeah, it must be something about Q must be the one all of the Star Trek authors fight over. I'm gonna write him. No, I'm gonna do it. It's my turn.
And I also think Laxwana too. It was just an interesting pairing, because I can remember my physical copy, I don't know where it is, but I know I have it floating around. I picked it up on digital, but I remember when I saw the cover for the first time, I'm like, sold. Those two, oh boy.
Do it.
I was no dummy. I knew there was going to be fireworks at that tender middle school age. I'm like, oh boy.
Nice.
Yes. And at least Picard's like, thank goodness it's not me.
Yep, bye.
As I said, at this point, everybody in the Enterprise can just kind of go to 10-4, get all the snacks and drinks that they can handle, and just sit back and between just Q and Deanna's mother, and probably Deanna too, just the three of them, just let them go at it, and they just all sit back and watch fireworks. So.
Yeah. And Riker should I do anything, sir?
No.
Easy number, but no.
No. You're good. Stay where
You're
you
good. Yep. Things will work out on its own.
Yep.
Well, the funny thing is when
we've all it's like we all know how next gen ends. Q will live to see another day. So
yes. Even though the ship gets damaged, Black Swan is nice enough to repair damage as she goes along her merry way.
Oh, sweet niblets.
Yes. I can't gush enough, but if you're looking for something that's going to give you a chuckle and like, oh dear, this is one
next
of them.
time I see that, I'm going to pick it up. So
yes.
There you
go. All right, that's
my.
the end of my list.
Oh my. Well, let's see here. Well, I will round out my non-fiction with Spare, which is Prince Harry's book, read by Prince Harry, which, as when we talked about The Crown, which is how we ended up with this particular book, is how we got to this particular episode to begin with. Obviously, when it comes to the quote unquote truth, you're going to get different versions from different people that were involved. And that's not because maybe somebody is just outright lying, trying to make themselves look good. Memory is a very fickle thing. And even more so when you've grown up in a situation like Harry did, where you don't really have much control over your own life, and try to grow up and be your own person. As much as Princess Diana tried to give her sons a quote unquote normal life, there's the idea of what we would consider normal was never going to exist for the royals, whether they like it or not. It's just the institution has built up in a way that it's insane. So obviously, you got to take some of what Harry says with a grain of salt, because he's coming at this from someone who has been emotionally and physically hurt by people that should have had his back. He went through very formative years of his life with a lot of turmoil and tragedy, so that's going to affect how you look back at things and decisions you make and the way you interpret interactions with people. Especially when you're going through things like grief. Heavy grief is going to cloud your perception of things, so you have to remember that when reading it. But that being said, he does corroborate a lot of stuff that we have heard and been told by either other royals or people that have been inside the system, either people that have worked at Kensington Palace, or whatever, friends of the royals, people of the press. Obviously, the British press is, bleh. They make our press almost look like angels sometimes, but so at the same time, hearing it's kind of from straight out of the mouth of someone who was smack dab in the middle of it, it's hard. It is hard to listen to, and it just makes me feel so bad for him. And it makes me feel sad for the people around him, even the people that were instigators in some of these things. It's like, Harry, I think, really could be very bitter, and it's obvious that he's hurt, and that's not just something you get over. Those are emotional scars that he's probably going to carry for the rest of his life. But he doesn't come off as like super bitter. He's just upset that this thing that he was born into and had no choice had such a strong effect on the way that he grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And how it's affected the people he cares for. And he can see how they, if they weren't inside this system of royalty and all the stuff that comes with it, that these people, his family members, would probably be very different people.
Mm-hmm.
But I give him kudos. Again, he recognizes where he had screwed up. He had substance issues with alcohol and drugs. Obviously he's made some just dumb teenage decisions that got public, like wearing the goose stepper uniform.
Yep.
He doesn't try to like excuse any of that. He recognizes where he has screwed up, both publicly and privately. It's very fun listening when he meets Megan and talks about their courtship. how being all Twitter pated affected him. This book is a couple years old, so it leads up until about the start of the pandemic. So it talks about how they realize they could see the writing on the wall with the lockdowns and realized that if they were going to get the hell out of England, they needed to get the hell out of England and fast. Yeah. Otherwise they were going to be locked down inside the bubble. And they did not want to be locked inside that bubble.
Right. Yeah.
How they went to Canada first, and they thought they found someplace remote, and then ended up getting discovered. So they end up going. If you watch their, I can't remember if it's the Oprah interview or the documentary.
I think it might have been Oprah interview where they did the tour. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, where they ended up when they first got to California. Tyler Perry offered them a place to stay. But yeah, it leads up until I think right before Lilibet is born or right after Lilibet is born. So but yeah, if you're like me and kind of obsessed with everything royal. And also because Harry and I are about the same age. So I can when he goes through things at certain ages, I'm like, oh, I remember being that age, because it was the same time period. I remember what like kids our age were into, and what was popular and what stuff was like. So to a certain point, obviously, because again, American, British, even that's there's a difference there. But as Eddie Izzard once said, about America and England, united by a common language and separated by a lot of water.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's Spare by Prince Harry. And then I wax poetic about this after been giving my not GalaxyCon, would have been Cincinnati Comic Expo recap. But this is one that I kind of like pick up and read like once a year, just because I get stuff out of it every time I read it. But Every Tool is a Hammer by Adam Savage. Also
my to be read list with Despair.
Yeah. And there's an audiobook version of that, which Adam reads.
Cool.
Chauncey did the audio version. Obviously, I have the actual physical version, which Adam signed for me.
Oh, cool. Cool.
when I finally was able to get around to getting my own physical copy, although I kept my notes. It's really funny because one of the last times I was at my library and I wasn't going straight to like just the pickup shelf, but actually went to browse the racks to see, what they had that might be interesting. They had Adam's book set out on display, like to showcase it in that particular section of like the self-help type section. So I was like, hi, my library knows this is a good book that people should read. So, but yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's the copy that I checked out, all those years ago. And because it was not my copy, I had to do all my notes on paper.
Yes.
And then when I finally got my own copy, I was able to go and like highlight stuff and write and scribble and all sorts of things. But yeah, but I'd taken my pieces of notebook paper that had the notes with my own now personal copy when I had Adam sign it. And, he was like, thank you for buying the book. And I was like, yeah, I had to, because at first I got it from the library and there was so much that I got out of it that I had to write it on paper. And he's like, that's amazing. I was like, I had to get my own copy so I could transfer my notes and highlights and stuff into my own copy. So, but even doing that, I kept coming across stuff. So it's just one of those books that it's just like, if you like his personality anyway, Mythbusters, or if you watch, his tested stuff on YouTube, he's a big old nerd just like the rest of us. So that's the rest of my nonfiction.
Cool. You want to go into your fiction at all, or you want to?
You can finish up and then.
Okay. Well, my last section, it's funny because I when I was listing all these out, I'm like, I need to like split these up because it just looks like a jumble of whatever. So my last section of books are books that I've either read on ebook or actual physical book. Because in my head I've like separated audiobooks and everything else. And ebook, I gotta say, is just easier for me because I'm usually juggling something, and if I if I sit down with a physical book, that's a signal to the world, and not just my children, but they definitely are involved or included in that. It's a signal to everybody. It's like, she sat down. Go bug her about something.
Yes.
So even at work when I'm on my lunch break, it doesn't happen often, but if I'm on, because I get an hour lunch when I work the longer days. If I have a book that I'm reading, somebody will want to come in and talk to me, and I'm like, and it'll be about something really dumb, and I'm like, look, I like you, I like working with you, but this is my lunch break, so shoot.
Can't time. See. Book in front. What's that universal
you
sign
would think
for?
Working at a library, that would just be like the default.
Usually
do not disturb.
There are always one or two people who are just like, here, I'm going to chat with you.
Can't take a hint, apparently.
Yeah, we've got some chatty Cathys at my work. I love my coworkers. I work with some really, really cool people. Some of them just have a few little want to come and talk quirks, and I'm like, hey. Anyway, so this first one that's here is called Once More Upon a Time by Roshani Chokshi. I know I'm not pronouncing that correct, but she's written lots of books for adults, teens, kids, everything in between. She writes fantasy. This one is sort of a fairy tale. I won't say it's a fairy tale retelling, but it's a sort of, you take fairy tale elements, mash them all together, and it turns into something really cool. So this one, it starts off, you kind of feel like, oh, this is going to be a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. Well, yes and no, because it's sort of the aftermath of that story, when the boy whoever the hero of the story finds out where the girls have been going, and he gets to marry one. Well, this is about one of her older sisters, and her name is Imelda, and she marries a young lordling who he tried to find out where the princesses were going, and he failed. But they've kind of liked each other for a long time. And then after the whole ordeal of the 12 Dancing Princesses story, he gets up the gumption like, oh, I'm gonna ask to marry her. And so they get married. And they are given a realm in the kingdom, and it is called Love's Hope. Now I'm blanking. So the name of it has love in the title. Basically, the king and queen of this little realm, they the realm will always prosper as long as those who rule over it are madly in love with each other, and these two are, so it works. Well, listen, this is all before the prologue ends. Well, poor Imelda, she gets sick, like deathly ill, and Ambrose is out of his mind with worry, and he's like, I will do anything to save my wife. And as we all know in fairy tales, that is never a good thing to say.
All magic comes with a price, dearie.
All magic comes with a price, dearie. So yes, so a witch shows up and says, I will save your wife. And you said you'll give anything. And he's like, yes, anything. And she says, okay, you two will not be in love with each other. And he's like, well, I mean, I made her fall in love with me once, I can do it again. But the thing is, if ever the king and queen of this realm fall out of love, after a year and a day, they will no longer be king and queen, and the realm will go to someone else, or it will just sit there and be abandoned. And so chapter 1 starts off, it's been a year, and so the next day, that's it. And they have not been in love with each other for a year, and it's kind of a dual point of view, so it goes back between Imelda and Ambrose, and they like she complains about these dumb things that he does, he complains about dumb things she does, very, married couple, but kind of more in a bit of a mean-spirited way, because they're just done. So they have to go, they're going to one more royal function as husband and wife, and then after that, they're just going to say they're husband and wife, and then they're just going to be done, and they're going to be basically divorced, and it's a tragedy and everything. But they're like, nah, well, it just, whatever, and they like kind of know that they used to love each other, but they don't, and it's all this whole thing. Well, the witch shows up again, or might be a different witch, I can't remember. And she says, oh, well, if you go to this, if you go steal this potion from, I think it's her sister, who is now a queen of another realm. If you do this, I might be able to help you get your marriage back together and get things. But you have to go as husband and wife, and you have to, make sure everybody still thinks you're married, even though you kind of are on the way out and everything. So they go on this journey and this queen is going to be at the same royal function that you're going to, so you'll be able to steal it from her there. So they go along, and as fairy tales go, shenanigans ensue. There is the badger who claims that he's under a spell, and he has to eat this certain apple from this certain orchard, and really he needs it, but then he knocks out Ambrose while he's helping him, and the badger takes on Ambrose's form and tries to, and he doesn't realize that these two really aren't in love, so he tries to be all lovey-dovey with Imelda, and she's like, no, I know you're not my husband, because you would never do this. And the poor badger is like, what happened? Where did I go wrong? So it's actually kind of funny. But things are and then they have to stop in an inn, and of course the only room that's there has one bed, and it's very awkward, but then they're kind of falling in love with each other again, and it's very, organic. And then by the end, they do steal the potion, and they're like, oh, we got to give this to the witch. And then, I guess we're splitting up, and we're not going to be king and queen of our realm anymore. And they're like, but wait, I actually kind of fell back in love with you. So it's very much, fairy tale homage, and with the whole love story and everything. And it's funny, and it's sweet, and I could see this as maybe if they ever did another proper season of Once Upon a Time. throw something like this in there that it would not be out of place. So I really enjoyed it. It was really sweet and kind of scratched that fairy tale itch. And honestly, I found this one because I don't know, you kind of get in a reading slump after a while. Like you've like read and read and read, and then all of a sudden you're like, I know I've got a lot of books I could be reading, but none of them are really calling out to me, as it were. So this is another one I just was on Libby, and I'm like just scrolling through. I'm like, I don't know, pick something. And this is one of them. Like I picked a whole bunch, and I tried them out, and none of them really did it. But this is one that did. So I feel like this one it got me out of the slump for a little bit, which was good. So that there's high praise there. So again, that's Once More Upon a Time by Roshana Chokshi. I can never say her name properly, but she's good. She's a fun one. Then my next one. Now this one is Otter by Catherine Applegate. Same author who did the one and only Ivan and subsequent one. This one we've had another monster hold list, although I think one of the school districts or one of the schools assigned it as reading for one of the grades, so we had a hard time getting hold of it. Also, one of our kids' book clubs was reading it, so it was just like everybody wanted to read it. But the good news about this one is a novel in verse, which is, you'll see these novels that are written as a sequence of poems. So instead of chapters, it's poems.
Right, kind of like the crossover by Kwame Alexander.
Yes, there's that one. Or there's also, what's it called? Inside Out and Back Again by Inhan Bai. Anyway,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that one. So this one is about an otter whose name is Otter. And this is about one. She is rescued. She ends up being a rescue otter from the Monterey Bay Aquarium in California.
Oh, I know that.
It's basically, so she's out in the wild, and you know, it's like poems about her living in the wild, and like, oh, she was with her mother as a baby, or you know, as a pup, but then her mother, I can't remember what happened to her mom, but it was very tragic and very sad, like eaten by a shark or something. And there's also some poems from the point of view of the shark that is hunting these poor otters in the ocean. But then like she ends up lost on the beach, I think after a storm or something. And then she talks, you know, then she's in like the aquarium, and you know the humans are talking to her, and they name her because she's that goes back and forth a couple times. Anyway, it's a really fast read, so it's considered a middle grade novel, which is like, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and even 6th grade, that sort of age group. But it's a cute book. If you like otters, I like otters, so
I love otters.
Me too.
So the title is Odder, so it's Odder by Catherine Applegate. If you search that, you'll find it. So that one is a fast read. I read it in about a day, less than a day. It was a couple hours. So if you're one that's like, oh, I just want something quick, that's always a good one. And novels in verse are becoming more and more popular, and there's some really good ones all over the place. So just you can find some good ones out there. And let's see, I'm gonna leave off the next two because the next one is actually a series that needs a little bit of explanation. So Rachel, if you want to read or go over a couple more of yours.
Oh, okay.
So
slowly digging in to my collection of Doctor Who related books. I have so much Doctor Who reading material. I can't fit it all on one shelf.
Yeah, that's
like I have my
right.
books sorted by like kind of either type or IP in some cases, because like I have like Marvel stuff. Obviously, I've got like Good Omens plus all the fringe stuff with it, so I've got like all my Neil Gaiman together. But Doctor Who, I have so much that it takes up an entire shelf and then some. So that being said, one that I have bothered to pick up and read all the way through is Doctor Who Meets Scratchman, which is written by Tom Baker.
Oh, that's a good one.
So
that
it's a fourth Doctor, and Sarah Jane and Harry adventure, and it's if you're a fan of the fourth Doctor, you're absolutely going to hear Tom Baker's voice in your head while you're reading this. But this whole idea of the Doctor, Sarah Jane, and Harry end up in this town that's seemingly in the middle of nowhere, and people are being attacked by scarecrows.
Mm-hmm.
But the scarecrows are not like necessarily look like your typical scarecrows. They tend to be like misshapen and using other whatever materials are nearby, not just straw, and like a flannel shirt and a pair of pants. Shirt and a hat, pair of pants. I think of like the Scarecrow and the Wizard of Oz. So of course the Doctor and his companions have to end up in the middle of it. And by no surprise, the Master also gets involved. At one point, there's some other recognizable foes, like some Cybermen. But I won't necessarily give you the spoil what exactly is going on, but if you, depending on how you interpret the Doctor Who episode, I believe it's The Beast Below, you will find out that that's not the first time that the Doctor has supposedly encountered the devil. So
or the Satan Pit.
The Satan Pit, not the Beast Below. Yeah, the Satan Pit. Sorry, Beast Below is the space whales. That's a whole other thing. The Satan Pit. So, so much Doctor Who, 60 years of stuff to keep in my brain. It's so hard.
Easily confused.
Yes,
because Beast Below can be considered. You could construe devil. Yep.
With a title like that, could.
Yep.
You didn't know the premise.
Exactly.
So, so much Doctor Who. But obviously, we're always, with like Big Finish and then some of these novels and stuff. In the comic books, we talk about whether the person gets the Doctor. And you have to kind of like know the show to understand what that means. You expect a Doctor to act and sound a certain way, even in the written word. And if anybody's gonna get the fourth Doctor, it's Tom Baker. So, but it's like they gave him the opportunity to just be like, here you go, let her rip, and that's exactly what he did. And it's scary. It's a bit scary because it being the rating system doesn't really apply onto like it does on TV. So it gets a little gruesome in some spots, but it's a fun read, especially because it's written by Tom. And then my other one is it's an Audible original, so you can only get it through Audible, but it is a full cast audio, whatever you want to call it, full cast audio, you want to call it graphic audio, whatever.
I think graphic audio is like a brand.
Graphic audio,
calling it that, but full cast audio.
But it's, like I said, it's only available on Audible, but it's Third Eye, and it's written and stars Felicia Day.
Oh, it is so good. Will
So
Wheaton,
it's set,
Nathan Fillion.
it's set in modern. It's set essentially, kind of modern day San Francisco, where magic exists alongside non-magical people, normies. We would be considered normies.
Yep.
And there's this girl named Laurel, and there's a prophecy that she was supposed to be the chosen one, and she was supposed to vanquish the great evil Tibus in this epic battle. Except Laurel loses. So now we're years after Laurel's defeat, and Tibus is in control of everything magical. And he, so any supernatural creatures live under his rule. He has stripped away the magical abilities of anyone that's refused to bow to him. And everyone hates Laurel. Yes, they hate her, but not as much as she hates herself for letting everyone down and not defeating Tibus. And she owns this shop called Third Eye that sells like incense and tarot card decks and stuff like that. It's San Francisco, of course. But she lives in the upstairs of the building, houses kind of apartments or rooms, and she lives in one, and then she's got two roommates, Sybil, a fairy who, if what's her fate, Lauren, Catherine Tate's character, the schoolgirl, Lauren, I think that's her name, something like that, where she's got that very Cockney accent, and she's very like, I'm not bothered, just very, very sassy. This is Sybil. If Lauren was a fairy, this would be Sybil, and who's also very horny. And then Frank was a vampire, but he's not a full vampire, so he can go out in the sun. If he wears a hat and very strong sunscreen, he makes himself. And he gets his blood by working at the local morgue.
Of course.
As one would to stay under the radar.
Frank and Sybil really hate each other. But
that's
one day this girl named Kate, who's supposed to be a normie, shows up and knows a whole lot about Laurel and the magical world than she should. And so it figures out that they've got to figure out how Kate knows what she knows. And at the same time, the annual shaming ceremony is coming up. So on the anniversary of her defeat, everyone in the magical realm gets together, and Tibus goes through the act of shaming Laurel in front of everybody. And like Laurel doesn't get along well with her mother, because her mother was supposed to be the one who trains her in magic, and all this stuff. But it's an all-star cast. Like I said, it's Felicia Day. She plays Laurel. Neil Gaiman narrates, so there is a narration, but Neil Gaiman narrates, and there's some fourth wall breaking on behalf of Neil Gaiman, which is quite funny. There's some very recognizable voices in there. Some only make short appearances, but you're definitely like, I know that voice. Although you might be surprised, because Will Wheaton's in it. He's another one that's in it. Weird Al makes an appearance at one point, a couple of times. I mean, his voice is very distinct. I was not necessarily paying attention to like the cast list. I will, so that you don't go through the same thing I did. Frank, that is not Patton Oswalt, who I thought that was the entire time. That is Sean Astin. Apparently,
almost sounds like Patton Oswalt.
Yeah. So the entire time I thought that was Patton Oswalt, and it's a part that certainly Patton Oswalt could do. Like, it's totally right up his alley. But no, it is Sean Astin. So apparently Sean Astin, at whatever age he is now sounds like Patton Oswalt. So don't be thinking.
I mean, I did see a picture of him with his wife and his daughter, the little girl who was at the end of Return of the King, who played Sam's little girl. Now she has graduated college.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep.
We're all getting older, folks. It sucks.
Yeah, we are. I did not know that Sean Astin's voice had changed that much with age. So but it's really good. It's really fun. It goes some very unexpected directions.
Yep.
So
and they kind of leave it open, so if they decide to do another one, they can.
Exactly, and that's
which I'm fingers crossed. I'm hoping, because I really enjoyed this. Yeah.
So, but there's some misdirection. There's some things where it seems like they're gonna go and use a particular trope, but then they're like, "Ah ha ha, told you." So, but so if you've got Audible, you can go get that one. It's just and it pulls a lot from fantasy and mythology, so that you're gonna recognize a lot of creatures and stuff, vampires, werewolves, fairies. There's like the was it the Baba Ganoush? Hell, the devil, Beelzebub. Gnomes. I mean, Felicia, again, she's a huge nerd like the rest of us, so she knows what she's talking about. It especially helps when you have friends like Neil Gaiman to play in your sandbox as well. And Neil's narration is just like, I love him narrating anyway, but he obviously is having fun with this, so I'm totally I love it. So I hope that there's a sequel, because I would totally be down for some of this, and the fact that it's set in San Francisco, and I've been to San Francisco several times, so when they talk about certain places, I'm like, I know where they're talking about. I've been there.
Or it's like, I know what place you're trying to cover up. It's not that.
I mean, we got a place like San Francisco where it's kind of just wild to begin with. So it's always been kind of a unique city. So, but Felicia Day, Third Eye, full cast audio. There is a book too, if you just want to read the book, but why do that when you can get, this awesome full audio with Felicia and Sean Astin and Neil Gaiman and other people. So that's it.
Okay. Well, then I'll go ahead. Did you want to do your in progress ones, or?
Nah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll round mine out. So
there'll be links in the show notes.
Okay, links in the show notes. So my next few, actually, one is two books in a series. I'm hoping a third comes out, because dang, this series was good. And then one that I just stumbled on the other day and just totally fell in love with. But anyway, so these next two are part of the Hex series, Hex, by Jessica Clare. The first one is called Go Hex Yourself, and the other one is called What the Hex, which I'm like, okay, I'm already intrigued by these titles. Well, and it gets even better. So the first one, Go Hex Yourself, is about these are kind of like urban fantasy paranormal. So it takes place in our present day whatever. But there's, paranormal sort of thing. So the protagonist of this of Go Hex Yourself is a girl named Regina Johnson. She goes by Reggie because she hates Regina, which I kind of can't. Well, it depends on how you use it. Can't blame her. But anyway, she is she answers an ad in the paper for a job because she's having a hard time keeping a job down because her parents are leeches. Like anytime that she has a little bit of money, they come in and like, oh, can you pay our bills? Can you do this? Can you do that? She basically is the she is the adult in the family. But anyway, so that is her biggest challenge. She answers an ad in the paper for someone to for the ad she thinks someone the ad asks for someone who's good at spellcraft. Well, in this world, there is a card game called Spellcraft: The Magic Game, which you can tell is a copyright friendly version of Magic the Gathering. And she's like, and like her last job was to do with like at a game shop or something. She's like, oh, okay, well, I can do this. So she goes to answer the ad, and it's at this old, very, very, very older than Victorian house with this sweet little old lady and her nephew that they live there, and it basically turns out that she is being a personal assistant, but she's actually applying for to be a witch's familiar, because in this world there are witches and then there are their familiars who are basically apprentice witches, but the witches can keep a familiar for centuries basically and never let the familiar become. Anyway, there's a whole shtick there. So Reggie thinks that, oh, I'm hired to help this poor old dear who's kind of senile, and she thinks she's a witch, but I'll just go along with it. The pay is very good because she is like making bank, enough money that she could like totally tell her parents to F off. This is FU money, and totally get rid of them, because right now she is like living on the charity of friends and others who are really trying to help her out, and she cannot get out from under this. So, but it turns out Reggie actually has an affinity for magic, like actual magic, not just the card game. And after a while, her nephew, who's like a complete curmudgeon, the old lady's nephew, I should say, I'm getting ahead of myself. He's a complete curmudgeon. He doesn't think that his aunt needs to hire this girl, and but the nephew and the old lady, they are both ancient magic. Like the old lady, she has been around since the Roman Empire. In fact, her nephew is named, he goes by Ben, but his real name is Caliban. And he goes by Ben because he hates that name, and the witches in this world will be called upon to do magic for like companies, and it'll be like little curses about like, oh, I'm gonna curse my financial competitors, and it's not anything big or like really, but it's like, oh, like your stock is gonna fall, or this is gonna happen, or some or your best employee is gonna quit, or stuff like that. So it's like corporate spellcraft, I guess. It's kind of funny. So he's like, you don't need this. My aunt doesn't need this familiar. She has no magic. Like, why are you even here? But the aunt is just totally just loves Reggie. Eventually, Reggie figures out that, oh, what, magic exists. You're a wizard, Harry. And it's and there's like, and so she falls into this whole culture, but she's actually a pretty talented familiar. And it kind of has a more Dresden Files vibe, if Dresden Files was a romantic comedy. So crap happens, bad guys show up, try to get the aunt because she has enemies, and the nephew and Reggie, they kind of have to, like, there's this whole thing about a bond of a witch and their familiar. Well, Reggie has to give her bond to Ben, which is actually kind of a bad thing because she already said she was going to give it to the aunt, and all these other things. But it turns out the aunt was kind of being a cheeky little matchmaker, and she really wanted her nephew to, because her nephew is, you know,
how is
it's
that not
sort of
surprising?
thing. It's that sort of thing. It's funny, it's cute,
Yep.
but you know, there's also like actual stakes in it, and magic is involved, and there's this whole sort of underground culture of magic and witches and warlocks and things like that. And they have their own laws and their governing body and all these other things. And there's, you know, a wait list of people who are waiting to become familiars, which is what the next book is about in What the Hex, which I actually liked a little bit better than Go Hex Yourself, which I liked. Go Hex Yourself was great. But then there's What the Hex. And this one focuses on, okay, I gotta remember her name. And this one just came out last year. Is the female main character is Penny, and she is on a wait list to be a familiar, and her parents are just as bad as Reggie's, except in a different way, because her parents are both familiars to other witches, and those witches, like, the familiars just have to stay with the witches all the time. Like, they can't come and be a family. They don't, like her parents are not her parents. Now obviously Penny is an adult. She is a grown woman. She has a job and all this. But her parents, like Penny takes care of the house. She makes sure the laundry gets made, that the dishes are done, that all these things, that the house is taken care of. So she's kind of their live-in servant, and you know, they barely acknowledge her. But she's like, oh, it's okay, I don't have a witch yet, and this is so important, and blah blah blah. So she's very much that, I'm fine, it's okay. She probably could have benefited from reading Dying of Politeness, if we're being honest here. Well, so then the male main character his name is Willem, and he's a warlock, but he is under sanctions from like the Wizard Witches Council because of he was framed for a crime from his old mentor, because he left his old mentor, because his old mentor was in some bad stuff, to the point like he's killing familiars, but they don't have proof of it, and Willem only got out of it because of some very dumb luck. Ooh, so he got away. Yeah, but he's under sanctions. He can't have a familiar, and he can't use magic except the very basic stuff. And he is just he's got a few more years on his probation, but he's like just dying because he is trying so hard to. Yeah. Anyway, so he he is like just having the worst time of it. Well, he and Ben are friends, so Ben and Reggie decide, because they're in this, and they decide, well, we need Penny to work with Willem, because Willem needs a familiar. Now we know it's illegal, and we're not going to. And if we're asked about this, we're going to deny it, because it's execution levels of punishment if you're caught doing this. So, and it's very much sort of the grumpy sunshine sort of trope, where one is very, very grumpy and one is just, because Penny is just adorable, but she also needs to kind of deal with her own crap. So Penny unofficially becomes Willem's familiar, but it's all on the down low, and they start like doing magic and trying to figure out certain things, like what is his old mentor up to, how can they prove that he's actually doing the things that he's been doing to familiars, and can he clear his name. And then they sort of fall in love over time, and it's very sweet, and it's like it's sort of like it's the romance is happening as they are unraveling the case, and then the mentor figures out what's going on, and he mucks things up and everything. But I'm just like, oh, but these two are just so freaking adorable. And I cannot wait for the next book, because I'm really hoping there's a third book in this series, because I've just really enjoyed these first two. But yeah, Willem and Penny are the best. They're just lovely. Just yay. And then so that's the Hex series by Jessica Clare. And I need to look up and see what else she's written. I think she's uses a different name for other series. I'd have to look into that again, because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I like those two. And then the last one I have in here, I actually found a couple days ago on Kindle Unlimited, no less. And okay, I know there is a trope in romance called age gap romance, and that's like when an older, there's an old one of the couple is older, the other couple is younger. Some people get squicked out by it because they think, ooh, it's predatory, which it can be. I'm not going to say it won't, so you got to be careful with it and just kind of know. But there are also some that can be really, really well done, and I just kind of fell down a rabbit hole the other day while I was at work and things were slow, and I was just kind of poking around, and also we're doing some genre study stuff at work. So just to help us, we all kind of talk about different genres and to be better at readers advisory and find stuff for patrons that are looking for what they want. Well, this one I found, and it is it's called She Was Made for Me by Jen Morris, and so it is this this girl who's in mid to late 20s, if I'm remembering correctly. I need to grab the synopsis right here. And she is super stinking workaholic. Like she's from New York, but she lives in Silicon Valley, and basically she doesn't eat nor sleep. She just works. Like the first chapter where you meet her, she is her boss comes in with coffee for both of them, and Violet is the girl's name. She's sitting on the floor looking at a chart. She's like and she's an assistant to the project manager. So she's this like woman's PA. She's not an actual project manager, but she is just like, no, I've got to do this. And the lady who's the actual program manager is like, look, you've got to go home. You got to sleep. You got to, like, I appreciate your work ethic, but holy cow. But then her boss gives her some bad news. Like, there were budget cuts, and they really had to work on, and she really wanted Violet to stay, but they had to let her go. So Violet is just in a panic mode, like, what do I even do? Work has been my life. And you find out that her dad is like wanted to be a high-powered lawyer because he's a high-powered lawyer, but she just couldn't hack it in law school because I don't want to say she just couldn't hack it. She actually had a panic attack during her debate class. Holy cow. And just like getting up to talk in front of people just freaked her out. And I'm like, I don't blame you for not majoring in that. So meanwhile, this man named Kyle, who is a former colleague of Violet's dad, and just a few years younger than her dad. Anyway, he, the dad calls Kyle and says, hey, because the dad is like working on some real estate stuff. He's like, hey, I've got this building I want you to come work on. Like you'll be the foreman and the contractor and all this stuff. And I've got a great program manager. And so Kyle is like in his 40s. And he's like, fine, I'll come work for you. But he lived in the city and he did all the high powered city life stuff. And that drove him, to a mental breakdown. So now he lives up in Maine and works on his cabin. But then his friend said, oh yeah, come back and work for me. So first day back, Kyle runs into this pretty girl who he thinks is in her mid-30s, and they get talking and everything, and they're going the same place, and it turns out that her dad, that she's Violet, and Kyle, and she's the program or the project manager for this remodeling, and Kyle is the foreman. Kyle is her dad's best friend, and that's his daughter, and he was like this close to asking her out. So
it sounds like a really bad Hallmark movie.
It kind of could be, it kind of does have that Hallmark vibe to it, and maybe I was just in a really good mood for that kind of thing. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the writing. And it wasn't like, ooh, we're going to be creepy, and here's this older guy who's creeping on this young kid, because it's like, no, it's not written that way at all. And you kind of have to continually remind yourself, like, she's 20, 25, 26, but she acts like she's in her 30s. So it doesn't, so the relationship isn't squicky. The relationship isn't freaky. It's only freaky when they're like, wait, you're my dad's best friend, and you're this much older, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I don't know. It was just one of those things. Like I need, I wanted to try something a little different with my romance reading, and you notice that yes, I read a lot of things that have a love story to it. That's my thing. That's what I like, and more often than not, it has a fantasy vibe to it. But there's also stuff that's straight up. And usually, I don't do contemporary romance. Sometimes the contemporary romance, I'm just kind of like, ugh, no, it's too realistic. I hate it. Or it's the female main character is just way too girl boss and gonna cut the guy's balls off until she falls for him or something. Like, I can't stand that. I cannot stand that trope at all. And Violet in this book, she kind of starts out that way, but then people start telling her, look, you gotta chill out. You cannot work 24/7. What is your social life? What is your life outside work? And she realizes, oh, I don't have one. But it's like, but
you need to find a work-life
yes,
balance.
And she's the only one who thinks that what she's doing is a good thing. So it's not like anybody's standing over her like, no, you got to work. Well, her dad kind of does, but it's more encouragement that she takes the wrong way. So there's also some really good character stuff in here, and it's just, I don't know. It was one of those, I was like, I found it while I was at the desk at work the other day, and then I had to come home and I finished reading it. It's like I found it and finished reading it in just a few hours. And I'm like, when is the last time that's happened? Is when I've done that. So that's why I threw it on here. So it's not really, sci-fi, fantasy, anything like that, but I liked it. So there we go. So hopefully we gave you some ideas of maybe something good to read, or if you just want to venture out into something new, or I don't know. We have quite the list here of stuff we've been going over, and we've been on here for quite some time too, so we probably need to wrap it up. So any of our listeners want to chime in on anything they've been reading, or anything, if you've read any of these books, want to comment on, add your 2 cents, or just add to our to be read list, because heaven knows mine isn't long enough.
Exactly.
I said, I'm not even getting in. It's like I've got 2 that are in progress, and like I said, I just picked up like 2 books that are like fun for reading for me, that a couple of memoirs, and then I picked up a couple more things that are going in the are my ever growing, again, taking up way more than one shelf on a
yes
bookshelf of books related to stuff for the nonprofit. So it's like
just going and going. But yes, so talk about your favorite books that you've read in the last, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah. Plus all the ones that are on it's on the list. I can hear you now, Shalane. Yes, the Twisted Disney stuff is on my list.
Working on it.
Yes.
But yes, so send us feedback. That's what I'm getting at here. Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, which is thefivishfangirls.com, and you can leave a comment there, or go to our social media, or Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we'll read comments like left there like we do feedback, so that's awesome. And you can also find our show notes at our website, so all of these, well, yes, they'll be linked in some capacity, whether it's on Amazon or Goodreads, so you can find what you're looking for. You can also visit our merch shop and our Patreon if you feel so inclined as to support the podcast in a financial way, which does help us keep our costs down and such. So that is always appreciated. So thank you for that, and just thank you for listening and sending feedback and all those other fun things that we do as a podcast community in our audience. And we're just grateful that you all are out there. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this gushing over books, and I was good. I didn't even bring up the picture books this time.
And say we didn't even talk about your husband's work.
That's
although
right.
it's been brought up before.
Let me plug this really quick.
Yeah.
Okay, it isn't out yet, but Jared got by Amazon. He was one of the ones tapped to do their. They call it audiobook AI, but it's really a glorified voice to or text to voice. So he is in the process of getting all of the Morgan Black series put up into audiobook, which will most likely be through Audible because it's an Amazon thing. He's almost done with doing the first book, and then he's got to make some changes to the ebook, and it's a bit of a process. But it's like in the program is sort of in a beta stage. He just because he's got so many ratings and sales, which I'm like, yes. So he's getting those put up in audiobook. Hi, Jared. And we're talking about your audiobooks.
Yes. Big thing, remember, if you buy the ebook, you get the audiobook for $2.
Yes. So if you bought once the audiobook is live, if you have bought the ebook, the audiobook will only be $2. So nice. And it actually the voices, because we've been testing them out, the voices are actually pretty good. It's like and like I said, I'm a big audiobook reader, so I'm listening to them like, yeah, that isn't going to annoy me, or that sounds like it would be, Morgan's voice. So anyway, so plug that real quick. Jared's books are amazing. They're awesome, and they're going to be an audiobook soon. The first one is almost done, so that it's a bit of a process because you have to go through and make sure that it pronounces everything correctly and a bunch of other stuff. So anyway, so there's that. Thank you for the reminder because I was going to plug that and I forgot in the news. And then Lottie came in to say hi. So we're almost done. Of course. All right. So anyway, hi everybody. We're almost done. Promise.
You have to plug all the things.
So yeah, if I talk too much lovey-dovey romance stuff, well, there's some space pirates that you can.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Go dive into with Jared's work.
You take care of the lovey-dovey side, and the hubby takes care of the
space
pointy slashy stuff.
Yes.
Exactly.
So The Long Black by J.M. Anjewardin. If you are not familiar, that is the book. And yeah, the last name is very long, but you'll probably notice it.
Yeah,
get there, or we can link to it. But yeah, the audiobook is not up yet. He is still finishing it up, but it will once he's done. It's going up, so it should be within the week. If you are interested in the audio version of that one. So anyway, so thanks for listening, peeps. And this was kind of a long one, but it was fun.
Hey, it's episode 450.
50,
this is
exactly.
True. This is true. We need to yammer on for as long as we can without it being ridiculous. So.
Yeah. So, but yeah. It's a good thing today was a holiday for some people, so we got started a little earlier than we normally do.
That is true.
Yes.
Is true. I was like, it's only 8:00 here, but the call says it's been going on for almost 3.5 hours. So
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yep. Like I said, we were going back to our roots.
Yes.
You asked me to talk about books I've been reading recently, and I will be like, it's that whole. Pick a GIF where a scroll is just down the hallway. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah. That is that. And with that, we shall sign off for this week.
Yes, this is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I shall quote Pride and Prejudice. I declare, after all, there is no enjoyment like reading. How much sooner one tires of anything than of a book. When I have a house of my own, I shall be miserable if I have not an excellent library. Thank you, our Fiveish fam, for joining us on this week's geeky journey. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Stay connected with us on our website, thefiveishfangirls.com, and follow us on most social media with @FivishFangirls. Plus, check out our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back, to see how we're making a positive impact in our community. Until next time, stay nerdy and let the squee continue.